Welcome, guys, to another episode of Consciously Curious, where we deep dive into those that are thriving in their passion. On tonight's episode, the Natty Pro, Ryan Doris, natural pro bodybuilder, raw powerlifter,
You know, I don't identify with any of those.
athlete, or
No,
coach.
no.
What do you mean?
I've done those, and I definitely am that. I'm not denying it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be deeper, but when I hear it, it's as if I've almost forgot. So, for instance, like when I dream, like I'm a like lucid dreamer.
Okay.
Like it's fun.
Oh, lucky you.
Oh, there's so fun. I've never seen myself in a dream as a muscular person,
Okay.
a strong person. So it's like my own identity still hasn't registered how I look.
Right.
So so when I hear that, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I am.
You talked about that, about how your ego wants to stop your body from progressing, and you just got to tell your mental to, like, hey, stop it, let it do its thing.
That's hard for me. Yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but my ego is definitely out of control.
Right.
Out of control. I mean,
you keep it in check.
I mean, so I have this. I have to speak in a language that I don't want to speak in, but it's the only one that I know for now. So I've recently gotten into like the understanding of energy and chakras. I see it and I'm like, this it's just not true, right? I see it and I'm just not true. But it does have some truth to it. Like the idea of like focusing chakras in different places in energy, if I were to parallel what they call a chakra, and they say there's energy fields in my, third eye and things, that's not true. But there are focuses of activity in different parts of your brain, right? So when they talk about third eye chakra and those things, I would equate that to my frontal lobe.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
More activity going on there. So I have a very, very overdeveloped energy field here. I'm a big thinker. I can rationalize extremely well. And I think one of my goals for this year, which I've really been working on, is, again, producing more energy from here, from my heart, thinking a lot less, because this is way overdeveloped, and it's been very difficult for me to give up this thing. This thing is very egotistical. The frontal lobe, my rational, it believes it's the best. It's logicked itself into tricking me that it's the best, that my gut isn't good enough, that my heart isn't good enough. So whether you want to call your heart, the limbic part of your brain, whether you want to call your third eye, your frontal lobe, whatever language you want to use, it doesn't matter. But I think that's what I've always tried, at least this year, I'm trying to focus more on now. So when I say things like I don't identify with it or think about that, I feel like I'm just always so busy in whatever the current goal is that when I hear old goals that I've done, it's almost amazing just in human culture that something you've done long ago sticks with you and you can get social points for it and credit.
Crazy how that is.
That's nuts to me. Like an old thing is so old to me. But I think, I forget about that. I have a client who I got my MBA with. We were good friends. We still work together. And I'll never forget, like, the first day we stood up and did, like, the tell your cohort who you are. He had so much shit to say about himself. And I remember asking him the next day, I'm like, yo, how do you remember all that? Like, and I've always liked that about him, because if you've done hard work and gotten through those trials and tribulations, you should definitely identify as your wins. It's good for your brain, right? But I think I grew up in a culture, and kind of what we were talking about, you did too, where it's like nothing is good enough. So any win you have doesn't even register as like a positive endorphin release in your head. It's just like, that's what I was supposed to do, right? So when I say like my ego is out of control, my ego is like, that shit's old, do something new, right? Like, it's unreal, and I'm doing my best to.
So, and these days, you're a strength coach.
Strength and bodybuilding.
With a focus in emotional intelligence and self-mastery.
If they take it. I have some people who send me emails.
Seriously?
And it's 2 wave emojis. And it's like, my man, ride that wave. I have some people who send, 15, 20-minute videos every week. However you want to emotionally tap into it. If you want to give me a nod and I just nod you back, if you want to talk, whatever you want, I'll do. Whatever helps the athlete, I'll do. So,
Right.
the focus is, if you'd like it, yeah, we'll talk a lot. But I got some people who just don't.
Just for the strength
Man,
part, the
they just
athlete part.
really like the numbers.
Okay.
Just give me the quantitative, the data side. And luckily, like, I'm not the best at that compared to my peers, but I understand it and respect it well enough to know the importance of it. In objectively improving, you need that quantitative side. But I think what's largely ignored in the strength community and the bodybuilding community is that qualitative side. What's going on in your head? What are these blocks? Like, what's going on with you? And sometimes you just may need a dialogue over the course of a year. Like, I have one of my clients, this guy Joe, he's a good friend of mine too. I'm lucky to have clients for friends.
Nice.
Over the last year, he more or less transitioned, left his job he was worked at Boeing, put a down payment on a house, moved out. Like, that whole transition over a year, and that, instead of him saying like, "Hey man, busy week, I couldn't do the numbers," tell me, like, open up to me. What is the situation? And if I can put myself in your shoes, if I can walk a mile in those shoes and understand the context, and we have this relationship developed, I can understand what's going on. So it takes a lot of work, and financially it's not worth it, to be totally honest with you. But for me, I'm lucky that I just truly enjoy connecting with people. I like talking about it, so I would do it for free. So I think for me, it's more of something that's always been obvious in coaching. I've always fortunately had it in the coaches that I've had growing up since high school and everything. And I think online coaching kind of has omitted that. And I'm not saying that it needs to be done. I mean, do whatever you'd like. But I think for me, at least, to understand how do I have managed to keep clients for 5 years, 6 years,
Nice.
It's that relationship. It's relationship building and really giving a fuck, actually caring.
Right.
So.
Right. Very cool. And to get to that level, to be able to coach someone or have that cred, it's important to have those wins that you had, and to have the background.
And well, that's kind of the thing, right? The general public will remember it, right, really well, and it always amazes me, right? So I'll do, like, for instance, I hardly have posted on Instagram all of 2019. I mean, not much. But every time I post, I'm like, you guys still remember me? Right? Like, in my mind, I'm forgotten. But if you've had impact on people in the past, like you told me earlier 2 years ago, the interaction we had, I don't really think about it. I just try hard, do the right thing. I try to say the right thing, and I have no recollection or no memory of it.
Interesting.
So when I hear it, it's nuts.
Yeah. So to give people a brief background, I stumbled upon Ryan through Matt Ogus and Legends of Aesthetics, and that's when I wanted to, like, get in the gym and stuff like that. I still dabble here and there, but, like, we'll go into that later. And when I saw Matt's post recently, I'm like, hey, new YouTube videos up. I'm like, what? Like, he's back.
And you still remember?
That was an epic video. And we'll go into the branding and making it count and not doing it just to do it later on. But when did you first get into lifting? And was it bodybuilding first or powerlifting?
Yeah, for me, it started with bodybuilding. So my journey was a bit of mostly luck. Like most things successful with most people, it's mostly luck. I ran track in high school. I was really good. I was really good. Like, I would go to nationals every year. I think I took second in state senior year in triple jump, and nationals I was a top 5 guy. Then I went to college and I was still good. But man, I could not figure out that education system. I could not figure out academia. I didn't even understand what a syllabus was when I first got to college. Like, that's how badly prepared for college I was. I think most of my education where I grew up was fantastic, right? I grew up in Bolingbrook. We had Bolingbrook, Illinois. which is a western suburb of Chicago, has great public schools. But I think my older brother, by 4 years, phenomenal athlete. And then I came in my freshman year, 4 years after him when he left, kind of off of his high. And I was a great personality, good kid. I was good at sports. All the faculty just kind of like, and everyone and the coaches, they just kind of, it was good, but not good, right?
Because like babied you, or
not babied you, but you don't have to, you're not held to the same rigor as kids who are out of favor. I've always been a favorite. I've always been loved and liked by people. I've always been popular, and I've always been genetically talented, right? So the first system that I ever went to was university, where we were like, no one knows you here. Guess what? You got a full team full of genetically talented people. And it just, dude, it rocked my world. Right? I'd never had been in an environment where no one cares, right? And I've always had that love everywhere, like growing up. And I think when I ran, I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't be 3 minutes late. Like I couldn't figure it out. What, like in my world, like what doesn't matter? I'm gonna come here, work as hard as I can, and then the next day you have to go, and like we had these insane punishments. Like there's this joke in track where it's like we run so much, like our sport is your sport's punishment in track. That's the joke, right? So it's like you can't make us run. So like that's what every other sport does, right? Like I'll run. So they used to make us roll. So we would get up, and this is like I would roll all the time. So you'd get up at like 5 a.m. and then you go on the football field, and then the head coach would be out there, and she'd go on this rant like blah and you guys are making me, and you like, and it was a slacker of the week thing. I was there every week, and you would just roll. And I remember one morning, it was frost on the field.
On your side, you're talking about like
you
a log.
You lie down on your side and you roll 100 yards up and down.
Okay, that's brutal.
And right, so there's frost on the field. Needless to say, like my balls are like inside me. I had a uterus that day, basically, right? And you're throwing up, you're rolling, right? And then like you start rolling on the side sometimes. So now you're losing ground. It was brutal, right? So for me, I hated it. I went from this, and I went to college. My birthday's in August, so I got there when I was 17. So I was like a kid still, and I hated it. Like I hated that it wasn't fun, there wasn't love, and I think it was my first like softball pitch into what the world is. Right? It's like even if you're talented, the world is hard, and up until that point, the world had never been hard for me through the virtue of luck. I've been good looking. I've been funny. It's just luck, man. Just total luck. I had a healthy childhood. Was never hungry, and so I had all this luck around me, and not that my luck ran out. It just got normal. It just got normally difficult. And so that destroyed me, man. Like I can't lie. Like I went home, and like I remember my parents, because my older brother he had a scholarship, he finished and all that, and my younger brother had a scholarship. I was the only one of my brothers who like paid for school, right? And so I felt like this failure, like this complete failure. I came home, and like my parents are foreigner parents, so they like, so bad grades to them, it's like
what they do.
They can't even fathom why you wouldn't go to class for free, right? Like, and so this is kind of the roots of Fortis. I was a great athlete. I'm still a great athlete, but like I just need to communicate what I'm feeling sometimes to get that. Like my archetype isn't punish me and make me roll. My archetype is just like, maybe ask me, do I feel lost? Like why? Like, and that's what a lot of athletes need. A lot of people are great. There are many ways to bring out what you bring out, in what makes Steph Curry come out isn't the same attitude that, Draymond Green, right? Like athletes have archetypes. Athletes are different. And I felt like, especially in an NCAA model in track and field, you have these teams of, 27 men and 25 women, and it's similar to football, and that just blow the whistle, do the thing, and you better run in this time, right? I can't, and the only way out is to fake an injury, say my back hurts or something. So anyways, I couldn't understand that training model in track and group track, and then I couldn't understand the model of education. It was all new to me. Then I think when I went home, my two best friends from high school, they had the same problem I had. They were playing soccer collegiately at different schools. So we all came home, right? We were these like ex-athlete flunkies. And we were like, hey, you guys want to work out? And I'll never forget one of my friends, Assam Hussein, he was like, hey man, look at this article. And he sent me this article, this dude, Lane Norton, first anything I ever heard of bodybuilding. And he's like, it's an arm workout or something. He's like, come on, let's do arms. And I went and I did this arm workout. I'd never done arms before, really. And this is like 18 years old, out of college, out of flunked a year of college. And my arms hurt. So, dude, I called him. I was like, I think my arms are broken. Like, it was the first workout I ever had. So I didn't love it, right? Like, a lot of people find bodybuilding and they love it right away. A lot of people say it saved their life. Like, that, it did none of that for me. It just filled a void of time. Like, I've never not been in a sport my entire life. So when I don't train, it's like, what are these 5 extra hours I just have?
Okay.
It's just like,
Okay.
it was,
it filled the void. Yeah.
yeah,
There
I
you go.
was just used to doing like rigorous movement with that time. It just felt weird not training to me, right? And it still does. So that's kind of what I did, and I responded really well, and I got jacked pretty quickly because genetics, and 2, I had just come from like a collegiate track program where I understood consistently like all these things that people struggle with in the beginning. Like, I'd mastered that in high school, right? I knew how to work hard, train. Like, I it was easy to me, the transition. So I did that for a while, and I went to community college. I was just kind of working at like Vitamin Shop and stuff, and I was slowly just working in fitness. Then my brother, who's 18 months younger than me, 2 years behind me, he went to college, ran track, and the coaches were recruiting him. He was like number 1 in the country at the time, right? He was a stud. Where I was like, I think my high school ranking ended like 13th or something. He was like 1. So everybody wanted my brother. They wanted him so bad to the point that they would come to the house from all these schools across the country, and they'd be like, hey, Ryan, you still jumping, man? Like, and my mom would be like, if you want Troy, you got to take Ryan.
Thanks, Mom.
Sure enough, I did. I went back and I ran again.
Oh, really?
So
No way.
So school we go to, it's in Mississippi. And needless to say, that I didn't last long, right? So for the first time, I had a sense of really like kind of like a juxtaposed life path. I went back to track, and I was in Mississippi, right? So my brother and I, these 2 kids from the western suburbs of Chicago, like, listen to me, right? Listen to how I talk, right? Like, I'm a western kid from Chicago. So it's like Chicago's a weird place because it's like we are very aware of our culture, even if we don't sound and dress like it. And we're almost so hyper aware to a point that, like, I remember like the first day we got there, and like we got to the cafeteria, and there was like literally like a white side and a black side. No animosity, just Mississippi. And I just wasn't having like, and like my left Chicago couldn't take it, right? I couldn't take the whole place of Mississippi. Right. And then track was great. I mean, I ran good, my grades were good. I finally was starting to figure out this college thing, but man, I missed my life of going to work, going to school part-time, and lifting with my boys at like 10:30 p.m. I missed it, right? And so I felt heartbroken in a way that I told my brother, like, yeah, man, I'm not staying. Like, I'm going. And my brother was like, I'm out of here too. And sure enough, he left. He transferred to the University of Iowa, finished out his career there. And he's still running to this day. Right? Wow. And so in that time, my story of the Natty Pro begins, right? My connections with guys like Lane Norton, right? Yeah. The first article I ever read. There's this guy, John Hansen, who's like the first natural Olympia, and he promoted a show in Bolingbrook, right? Luck, right? Like, people like always talking about like why I'm natural. I don't know, bro, just luck, man. Like, I just was never in a situation where, like, my first introduction to bodybuilding was through Lane, was through just guy John. It was just through natural.
All the naturals. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I never really was tempted with steroids or anything like that.
Interesting.
Right?
What if you were surrounded by it?
I was so good at a natural sport, track, and I came from a family that was so good at
genetically. Or you already?
I was so good, and then I have to be honest. At 19 years old, the phrase I used in my head was ridiculous, but I was like, I get enough girls. What do I need to, you know what I mean? It was like, what? It was like, no, seriously. It was like, I like how I perform, like, I like how I look. Why would I need to spend any money on anything and get a dependency on anything? So I have to be honest. I've never been anti-steroids. I've never been anti-drugs. Ever. Never. Just in my situation, I've always liked how I looked. I've never struggled to build a body part. I've never felt like I needed to be bigger. I like putting on normal pants. And, I just never wanted to cross over to that next level of dedication, which it is a next level of dedication. And I just didn't want to do it. So, and I never have wanted to do it. Excuse me. So that's more or less the story of how the Natty Pro became the Natty Pro. And so I kind of went in natural bodybuilding, went pro. And I always felt like in some way I wouldn't say I was cheating, but I just had that base of coming from a real rigorous sport, which was collegiate track and field, like really knowing how to train, really knowing how to be dedicated, that everyone I was competing against, I was like, you guys are amateurs. But it's caught up today.
Okay.
The guys who compete in natural bodybuilding today,
insane, huh?
whoo, dude, we got some pro athletes in natural bodybuilding today.
Interesting.
Like then, in 2012, I was running circles around people.
Yeah.
But nowadays, dude, these guys are the talent pool, genetic pool in bodybuilding and powerlifting.
Like they're all good, to the point where they have to tell themselves like, just to be on the stage, you're good,
dude, They're good now. But that's good though. That's how sport grows when people who have so for instance, somebody like Antonio Brown, what's going on with his whole scandal and everything in football, if he really wanted to dedicate the next year and a half to playing soccer or playing baseball, he could definitely come close to being pro. His stock is just professional athlete in any way, shape, or form you put it. Same with LeBron. Like if LeBron wanted to be a wide receiver, give him 3 years. He'd be probably one of the top 100 on an NFL practice team, right? He might not be the best, but like he'd definitely be one of the best guys on the practice team, no doubt. Right. He'd be good. So he can.
Yeah. No flopping though, LeBron. Yeah.
Right. So the stem cells, I guess you can call it, are shifting to powerlifting, bodybuilding. So yeah, man, it's a really good time for the sport right now. I feel like I'm sort of like an OG right now in the sport, and I have this weird status where, like you said, people still respect it. And I look at myself in a mirror, and I see like sort of like a shell of my old self. Like I look, and I'm like, I'm not as good as I used to be. As an athlete, I see it. But it doesn't matter. Like people still remember you at your best. It's an odd thing.
Nostalgia is powerful.
It's a powerful thing, man. So people still remember like the 25-year-old version of me. Although like physically, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two if you saw my pictures from last year. But here,
yeah, you look good.
Here, it's not the same.
Okay,
it's definitely not the same. I feel it. I feel it fading. I can't.
So, after the bodybuilding, did you want to continue? Like, so, can you just because I don't know, can you walk me through the pro card process real quick?
Yeah. So, sorry. So the pro card process is, think about it like this. It's basically definition of what a bodybuilding pro is that you are eligible to compete for money.
Okay.
Right. So there are some individual sports where you can claim your pro status. So an individual sport like boxing or golf. I've never put on a pair of boxing gloves or golfed, but if I wanted to go claim my pro status, I could go do it. Oh. I could go compete for money. Okay. I'd lose a bunch of money entering contests, and I'd be an idiot, but I can go pro, right? Okay. At any time. Bodybuilding is not like that. Bodybuilding is that you have to actually win a contest or a series of contests to deserve the right to call yourself a pro. Oh. So that's why in bodybuilding, pro is such an elusive title. So in natural bodybuilding, there are really at this point 2 or 3 major worldwide organizations. And so what I did, I had a season in 2011 where I went pro in the 2 biggest organizations. Basically, like, I figured if the 2 will accept me and know I'm a pro there, I can compete as a pro anywhere. So it's just really a matter of, in natural bodybuilding at least, resource. If they were ever to sort of, even like the NBA used to be the ABA and NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
leagues come together over time, and that's sort of the transition natural bodybuilding is going into. So they're consolidating which ones are really going to stick and what's coming together, and you're starting to see, for instance, like I competed last year in probably in my opinion, the most difficult in competitive natural bodybuilding institution, which is WNBF. But I never went pro in the WNBF. I basically just had enough clout from being a pro in other organizations that I sent them an email, and I was like, "Hey, I'm me. Can I compete in your organization?" And they're like, "Yeah, for sure." Right.
Oh.
And that's kind of how it works now. So my pro status now, if you were to like to look me up and be like, "Is Ryan Doris a pro?" It's like expired. I'm technically not a pro, but if I want to compete, like I took a 6-year break, I just emailed all of the top organizations. I was like, "Hey, I'm me. I'm still pretty good. Can I compete as a pro?" So that's what's going on. At the top of natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
At the entry level, you got to go win these shows, man.
Okay.
Like, so a show has stipulations. It may have to be a certain number of competitors in the show, so it has to be difficult, right? It can't be like 5 people in a show.
Okay.
It has to be a certain number of competitors in a show. It has to be a certain number of people in your class and a certain number of classes.
Okay.
So when I went pro, at this, like the show I did for what was IFPA is now the IPE. So the big institutions, there's 3. There's IPE, WNBF, and OCB. Those 3 just pay the most money. That's what it boils down to. And the most competitors are there. They go where the money is. And their testing standards, there's some, like you see, like Muscle Mania stuff. That's where the term half natty comes from, right? They kind of but those are the 3 that really test. They actually test, right? And so I float between those, whatever I feel competitions I want to do, locations I want to go. So those 3 are almost acting as one organization in some way. And so more or less, you have to go to the amateur affiliate for these pro organizations. The show has to have, I don't know, 100 people. Your class has to have, I'm going off example of when I went pro. It's been so long. There were 3 classes, heavy, medium, short, or whatever. Sure. And I think each class had like 14 guys, right? So to go pro, you had to beat your class of 14 guys and then beat the winner of those other 2 classes. You had to win the overall. So you had to win the whole shit, right?
No way. Okay.
You had to be really good to go pro, right? That's kind of how it was back in the day. And I was doing that, and people were mind blown, right? Like I was like raking it up. And then like I went to my next pro season, and I was like in overalls, like with the top legends, which I think was kind of, again, a good and bad thing, I say, because in bodybuilding, I don't know, like you see the top, when you see the top, it's like you kind of get stuck there. So it's like I remember like I went in 2012 and I got into this huge overall with like he's still a legend, Cleveland Thomas, and I remember I lost by 1 point, and then I did that same show really last year, and again they're like, "Oh man, you remember in 2012, man, you lost by 1 point," and they were going on and on and on about it, right? And it's like, do I really invest the next 4 years of my energy into 1 point? That's what happens with bodybuilding, and that's why a lot of bodybuilders go nuts, right? Like you get that constantly second chasing effect, never give up thing, or you get people like me who is like, how about I don't bodybuild? And in that time I didn't bodybuild, I got nationally ranked in worldwide recognition in powerlifting, a totally new sport. I started with De Novo, sold my share of De Novo. Started Fortis. Yeah, dude. Or I could have chased that first place in 6 years.
And you've done a lot in 6 years.
Oh man.
Well, we didn't even get to say. So you've been kind of a nomad. You've been nomadic for a little bit.
Yeah.
Some Florida action, California action.
Yep. So yeah, like I said, I'm from here.
Yeah.
And then initially when I was getting my MBA, I was kind of in that Lane Norton group, and he had some great up and coming people in that group. And if you look at a lot of people who are really killing it in natural bodybuilding today, they started in that lane group.
Okay.
Like we all did. Like, really shout out to him, to be totally honest with you. But he's riding his own wave now, man. He's, from the last conversation I had with him, he's doing better than ever as an individual. He's got a small circle now, but he used to have a great group of young up and comers that he really empowered. And I think he did his time in giving back. I really have to give that to him. But, yeah, dude, I feel like it's just, I want to put this. Having a word diverger in my head the way I want to put it. It's hard to, I guess, predict how such a new thing is going to go. Between the rise of fitness, CrossFit, bodybuilding, powerlifting, and social media, it was almost impossible to determine what direction any of that was going to go 6 years ago or 5 years ago. So I think my being nomadic was responsive, less of what I wanted to do in the past few years. So through that lane group, I met Ben Escrow. Ben is currently, I think he just finished his master's in pharmaceutical chem or something like that. He's one of the smartest, honest to God, smartest people I've ever met in my life. And he had the Novo. He was running out of his parents' garage or something like that. And at the time, I already kind of had plans of what I was going to do. I was sponsored with Civation, who made Extend and stuff like that. And that was more or less my life's path. I was just going to kind of go with them and kind of just work in industry. And then one day I was talking to Ben, and he kind of was joking with me, and he said, what is it going to take for me to steal you from Civation? And I was like, I literally laughed, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, are you going to pay me $100,000? You know, it's like, I laughed. And I was like, yeah, dude, like, I'll help you out. Like, let me take a look at your numbers and stuff, right? Because, like, I think if there's one thing that people in business who get in the business are passionate about their product or service. But I think one thing to be successful in business that you need to become passionate about is money. And I think when people hear that, it's like some curse, or you feel like you become evil or something. I think of money as like water, right? Like, money is the water to the body, to earth. And like, money is moves, money makes, like, money is everything. Like, money is the centerpiece. Money is the life's blood of business. And most businesses largely ignore their blood work or the amount of water they're drinking, you know what I mean? And so I said, let me look at the numbers. And they were terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to put out numbers, but
no, it's all good.
Yeah, not just a hobby, more or less. The company was not incorporated.
It's funny because that's how I am right now.
Yeah,
so,
a hobby, right?
Speaking truth.
It's just a hobby. And so me, halfway through my MBA, I'm like, dude, I said to this guy who sits next to me, Paul Boris, I was like, he was in the accounting program at Northern Illinois. Their accounting program there is like the program. Like, in the time I was a marketing student at NIU. In the time that I was there, I never even spoke or saw an accounting student like in the same business building. Like, that's how exclusive they were. Like, wow. They're like it. Like, they're like KPMG, McDonald's, like they're like it, right? Okay. Like, and so he came from that, and I was like, man, just take a look at this. And he looks at it, and we just keep talking about this company more and more, because that's all we did in MBA, was talking about companies. And somehow it just, give it like 4 months, man. It just got to like, me and this guy getting our MBA together want to join you on this, and we want to go all in on this. That's how it became. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, ever. I never had dreams of being. I always thought I'm going to get an MBA, get a great job in the industry. I never thought I was going to work for myself. Never. I never planned it or envisioned it. But it got to the point that I got so interested in de novo, in like this idea of like doing genuine supplements and products. So basically what Ben was doing, he had a a really good source of protein powder that he was getting. He actually got it through Lane Norton, ironically enough, right? Like, he met these people, right? Because he was basically doing leucine research or something on the protein.
Yeah,
I
Lane,
forget,
yeah,
right?
right.
And so it was
That was his dissertation, I think.
on leucine,
Yeah.
right? And so the protein, the connection they was working with, basically this company who we sourced our protein from, Lane knew them through his, what do you call someone's professor, their guide, or whoever's in charge of you when you're getting a PhD. I forget the word.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
That person.
Okay.
Did work at this company on leucine. They were known for their high leucine content in this protein. And Ben got that in, and that's who we sourced our stuff from. Like, fortunately, right? Like, you need to buy, like,
investigator, something like that. Like,
you know
I
the
can't think of that.
you know the
I
word.
work in fucking UIC. Yeah.
Right. You know the word. It's like mentor or something. It's not that. I know the word. It's something. And whoever's watching is going to be like,
they're dinkusing right now.
and so anyways, he was that.
Okay.
Through that connection, Ben got to order, this is the most insane thing I've ever heard, 1/2 ton of protein to his house. That's unheard of, right? Like, first, like, you have to, the minimum is like 3 pallets, right? We're talking like 4 or 5 tons.
And he just went all in.
They gave him a deal because of his connection.
Wow.
You got to order 1/2 ton, and so you can run 1/2 ton pretty quickly, because if you don't have that many customers and you order the minimum of 5 tons, it's gonna go bad on you before you can sell it.
Yeah.
That sounded like drugs. Wow. It's literally the same thing.
Right.
Really. Right. So like the industry, the supplement industry is called nutraceuticals, right?
Okay.
It's not nutrition. It's not nutrition. It's not pharma. It's this weird gray area in the middle of catch me if you can FDA nutraceuticals, which leaves an opportunity for you to play it dirty or play it clean.
I hear you.
That's why the supplement industry is so shady. So what a company can do, what a lot of these companies do, since the government considers nutraceuticals, it's like all nutraceuticals are, I don't think post hoc would be the word, but it's like a catch me. It's like, I will create the product, and if you want to catch me, it's like the IRS, right? I'm just going to do it, and if you catch me, catch me.
Ask for forgiveness.
Or jail time, depending on how bad you fuck up. One of the two. And so that's what the supplement industry is like. So a lot of these people get their footing in the ground by selling pro hormones, illegal products. That's why you see people just outright selling steroids sometimes, right? Like, you can get away with it if you can fly under the radar of the FDA for 2 or 3 years. Then one day they come knocking down your door. So what Ben and I wanted to do was, how do you create a small company who doesn't have the money to pay for these FDA standards, right? To call the FDA and say, so what we did, we just literally, I remember our first thing, we were in Australia and we were figuring all this stuff out, and we used to be on the phone all the time. So basically we went to Australia for a month. Lane put on a tour, and we took all the money that we got from that month's worth of touring seminars in Australia and put it in the company.
Oh, okay.
So that was like our seed investment together. And we also moved to Florida with it. Florida, because there's 2 states in the United States where you have great, basically, tax code for a nutraceuticals company. Utah, which is one of the biggest states for manufacturing, and Florida.
That in Florida, yeah.
Right. Fucking, of course, Florida we moved to, right? So we go to Florida, and that's how my first nomadic journey begins. I didn't want to move to Florida. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but it just felt right. It just felt like what I wanted to do, and maybe I'll get back to work or something. So you get there, and you just start learning the hard way, right? We got this warehouse, and it's just empty white space, 1,000 square feet. And then we call these manufacturers like, hey, we need to set up this. And then they walk in, and then they look at you like, I remember, I'll never forget, they're like, something. She's like, do you guys even have a mezzanine? And we both look at each other, we're like, what's a mezzanine? And he laughed at us in our face. And while he was laughing, I just kept writing down stuff. And that's really how I learned how to get de novo off its feet. I would call these companies, literally waste their time, right? They're selling stuff for like $35,000. And I'm just like this child on the phone. And they're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Goodbye, sir. And every now and then, what people do, like, is that when you're a nobody, people do this weird thing where they try to flex on you. They're like, do you even know what a something is? Do you even have this? And it's like, you're dissing me, but low key educated me because I don't know.
Right.
But I'm gonna write it down,
Good for you.
and because I have this phone, I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah.
Right. And enter those steps right away. Right. And that's really how I learned most of what this sports manufacturing supplement stuff is. So we have the space. We order these food safe blend, like these food grade blenders, basically, where you can like mix like it looks like a cement mixer, but it's like basically for companies who make like cakes and batches, like bakers and stuff use them basically just to get a homogeneous mix. And we started making protein, just me and him.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and they had like 5 mixers going with cords plugged in. We're fucking have ant
Kinda
traps.
some Breaking Bad with some protein.
Legit, right? Then we had always problems. Like the AC would go out, right? And then if it's
yeah.
out for, then you know you don't want water to get in the So it's like literally he and I both gave up both of our lives. He left home, I left home, and it was just me and him, going all in. My other partner, Paul, who was really a finance guy, he wasn't getting his hands dirty, right? He was just doing the numbers and keeping us quantitatively alive. And dude, we just literally it was one of the most difficult times in my life in terms of entrepreneurship, and also this was before a time when like really Gary Vee was out, right? So this was like a time, it was like probably the last of an era where grinding, like for instance, like just literally yesterday and 2 days ago, I worked till 5 o'clock in the morning, and like that has become such a non-topic to me now, right? Like working all night, like it's nothing to me. Like, and not from a point of like arrogance, but like I did it so much in de novo. If I do it twice a week now, I had a great week. You know what I mean? If I didn't, like it's a fantastic week. So I think I really learned those hardships, and I really just learned through bludgeonings and beatings in de novo, being embarrassed, losing money. Like we did a run on bags one time, the labels, and then we had one typo in it, and you know if it's got it right, and so that's like $10,000 down the drain.
Yeah.
And that hurts, man.
Yeah.
Right? It hurts, and then you just want to go in your room and cry, right? Over bags, you know. So do you fucking just run the bags? You know, like what do you do, right? Do you run the bags anyway? Risk the FDA seeing, you know, something like, and so you make all these decisions. So long story short, we do that through the years. Things slowly grow. We buy new equipment, right? Like we build this mezzanine. Like Ben's dad comes down, we build this mezzanine, and then over time, people start seeing the wave. People like good work. There's this kid Reggie. Shout out to Reggie. I still coach Reggie to this day. He worked at a bakery, and he used to work out at the gym in Tampa, the powerhouse. And I was like, hey, you know anything about like powders and stuff, man? Reggie comes in, right?
Okay.
One of my clients, Billy, this all came from like clients and friends. He comes down, Billy comes down. Billy was one of the first people in the warehouse. Then a good friend, Jake, he stopped, he finished school. And next thing you know, you fast forward some time, we have 2 manufacturers. We have an office, you know, in 13 employees.
It's a legit business.
Fuck, man. It just happened. Like, it just happened. And then for me, I think my exodus and my leaving of de novo meant everything to me. It was my first.
You have a tattoo of it, don't you?
Oh God, dude. It was my frat.
Right.
It was my dude. Like it's meant everything to. It's changed my life. Right. It taught me. It was my MBA, de novo.
Interesting.
Just
yeah.
the field experience.
Yeah.
What really I think tore us apart in our relationship with at least Ben and I was de novo was at a point where it got so big and so good that we lost that. And you hear this story all the time, like John Lennon and Paul McCartney stopped writing songs together because they were busy with their own lives. Like we weren't going to the warehouse till 5 a.m. and then going to Wawa for this gas station for subs after, you know, like we stopped doing those things. He would do chemistry stuff. He had a lab in the office, and I would do marketing meetings, right? And so it's like it got to a point where it was almost like you see the same thing with Steve Jobs and
Steve Wozniak and stuff.
Wozniak, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the same thing with Bill Gates and
I wonder if and you know everything happens for a reason, but what if like the company took a a retreat, a team building thing, you know, like, hey, you know, we let's celebrate how far we've come, and let's just take some time for ourselves.
Yeah, my ego wouldn't allow that at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think I can't speak for him, but I don't think his did, because we had periods where we would leave the company for, it seemed like forever, but it'd be like 2 weeks, you know, like I remember like I'd go like California for like 3 weeks, or just like some, and you just
just
get
for
away,
yourself.
or just for
Okay.
yourself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the company was so like, it was in this weird place where it's like, I'll be honest, $30,000 a month isn't a lot of money for a company, but if you've never even seen $5,000,
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of money for a 27-year-old group of kids,
Yeah.
dudes,
Yes,
kids,
absolutely.
right? We don't know
Frat.
a
Right.
frat, a
Right.
frat, dude. Like the company literally would be like, we would go work. I mean, we'd work insane. We'd have these meetings. We'd work. And then we just fucking party.
Shoot the shit,
We'd,
yeah.
we'd party at the same house which we use as our secondary office. It was nuts. It was nuts, dude. Like, and when it was so non-sustainable. Like, because between the amount of work I did, the amount of partying I did, and then the powerlifting, dude, and it's crazy, right? Like Fitness IQ, Jorge, we had so many athletes and people. Dude, it was just, it got to a point.
He was part of that too.
Everyone started in
Shit,
De Novo. That's where he started.
Fuck, I didn't. I
LS
had no idea.
McLean, yeah, he started. Those were my boys, man.
Ah.
Right. So this ties back to like the Lane thing. When I said I think Lane has paid his dues and like put people on a platform, that's what De Novo was for me. Right. So I got some of my favorite people who are like, I have good taste in you.
I have.
Like,
Okay.
come in.
Okay.
I'll bring you into my thing, and I
Okay.
platform them. I help them
Okay.
get them followings. Like I help them get their own apparel line, right? And so they're still my boys,
Right.
and I see them eating, and I see them doing their thing,
Yes.
and it's just like, I feel, when I say like I feel like an OG, it's like I feel like I can like work on like my, I don't want to say passion project, but like I have nothing to prove to myself in terms of entrepreneurial competence. Like De Novo covered that for me in a very short period of time, albeit at the expense of my relationship with my current girlfriend. It was terrible at the. I mean, I was all over the place. My family really. I mean, everything sacrificed in the place of that. It was a hyper focused period of my life, which it was my frat, man, with my boys. Like, literally, like, it was like bone and blood, man. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and so, when we got to, at least what I felt was the end of my time in De Novo, it wasn't so clear how it was going to go, right? Like, it was some combinations of like, I have a non-disclosure too, so I have to,
For sure.
I have I think what I'm saying. There were some points where it was like, it wasn't obvious that I was going to leave.
Oh.
In fact, it was never obvious. It was more obvious like, this is Ryan's company, we're going to go. That's really what it was.
Oh.
And so the reason why I did it is because of ego. The reason I left was really an ego thing. It was like, all right, the disagreements we have, which I won't talk about, I'd like to see you do it without me. And here's the only suggestion I have. My suggestion was, you take my ownership and you give it to all of the first OG employees. Anna, Reggie, Jake, right? But like the OGs who were in that warehouse with us till 4 a.m, getting mosquito bites, like driving across that bridge back to Tampa side from Clearwater side, like give it to the that was my only thing. And so we obviously that deal didn't that I can't talk about the deal that we did sell for, but it worked out. They have their company. They're more now like a UK based thing. They have Luke. And I think it was a good move for them, honestly.
Okay.
Like they moved in like the gaming. They're based in the UK now, largely. They have a whole UK team. It's nuts. Like they just shifted, and it works for them. But yeah, I just feel like I didn't want to disrupt what Ben created. I had so much, regardless of our disagreements, I had so much respect that he was number one in De Novo. Although in the employees, in Power Shift eyes, it looked, in the public, it looked like I was one. I had so much respect for him that like I didn't want to make him feel like an outsider in his home. And so I was at the time egotistical and young enough to be like, I can do it again. And sure enough, I have, right? Like, I'm fine. I have more money than ever. Like, my
Yeah.
wave is stronger than ever, right? Like, sure
Right.
enough. And so I think that's kind of like where Fortis was born, right? I saw issues that I didn't like in supplements, and I tackled those first. And then I think now in Fortis, it's sort of the same model as the Novo, much smaller team, obviously, just me and coaching, and through the power of content and writing, that's kind of where it goes. So 3 years post de novo, Fortis is finally, I think, going to become somewhat of a company that produces something. So this year I've just like been writing a book, really. And for me, outside of coaching, it will be the first Fortis product.
Yeah.
Right? Like on all these things that I've been talking about with like athletes and philosophy and things like that. So, we didn't get it on the mic, but this is what I was saying earlier. For anyone that brutally sat through that super long story of track to now in my life, all of that nomadic moving experience, none of it was planned. None of it was predicted. I just rode a wave. I went with it. When I had to break down and cry and go back to my mom's house, I did it. When I was fucking rich, I was rich. When I make a lot of money, I take it. If I don't make a lot, I don't. So I just basically ride whatever wave I'm on. And that just following the truth. I call it walking with God. God being
Force, whatever you
force, truth, light, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
reality. I just try to walk with God, and I know that if I walk with God, I can't lose, because the only thing that walking with the truth can lead me to is really the end, my death, which is guaranteed for sure. So like, what's really the hesitation or fear, and just doing what feels right. So when I was telling you earlier, you can't lose if you follow the truth. I have to be honest, just following what feels right, God, whatever word, label, energy you want to put on it. I've had that de novo experience. I've had collegiate track experience. I've had what I have today with Fortis, being really more of a solo entrepreneur. My business is more profitable than ever. I make more money than I've ever made in my life. I'm happier than I've ever been. But it has come at the expense of a lot of chaos and a lot of kind of finding how to reorganize that chaos to make some sense. And that's the same like karmic samsara wheel, man. It's the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And that's why I always say in my posts, like, ride that wave, because people want to be the same. They want to put out the same content. They want to follow the same content schedule, same time, same everything. And you get stuck into this loop of boring, right? Of uninterestingness. And I think why my brand has stood out is because I've been a real person who just so happens to love working out. And I just talk about working out sometimes, right? So when people say things like a natural bodybuilder pro or whatever, I don't know. I don't feel like I identify with that. I just feel like I try to focus on whatever challenge is in front of me at the moment more than anything. And how am I going to navigate that? And I mean, I don't worry myself, but like I concern myself so wholeheartedly on the issue in front of me, whatever obstacles in the way to figuring it out. And there's nothing like the feeling of breakthrough, of figuring something out that you didn't really have much faith in. So if I had to identify with anything, it would be that I am just on a path of self-mastery, trying to figure out how to do this shit, like trying to figure out where I'm at. I don't try to define it. I listen to the signs when they're good. If it's hard, fucking whatever, man, do it. Fucking just do it and get on with it. And that has accumulated a brand with my accountant. We have like our last meeting. My accountant is the shit, dude. This dude is like I should call him my whole financier, to be totally honest with you. But he's one of the strongest members of my team. I gotta be honest. I love this dude. And he says, as an accountant, he's like, you know what I like about your brand? He's like, you can literally fuck up for a month and people will still ride with you. I think I'm one of the few influencers in fitness who hasn't put out this brand of cleanliness. Like, I'm always strong. I'm never injured. I always got a 6-pack. Like, I have just been putting out my fuck ups and the conquering of my fuck ups for so many years that people are riding with me. Normal people, the people, like one thing I was telling you earlier, right? Like, Karl Marx, his concern was like the people, the people, the people. And it's like, although I don't agree with communist ideologies, I agree with the people. Do the people really get what's going on?
I think that's what makes The Rock successful.
God,
Right?
dude. Yeah.
It's just like that $7 production. It's just like
Dude.
never forgetting where you came from and
Ever.
sharing that with people.
It's the people, man. That's what matters. And sometimes I see posts and they feel like, to me, they feel like arm's length. It's like, hey guys, training arms today. What do you like to train? It's like, dude, bring them in. Bring them in. Talk to people. Like, what are you doing? What are we doing here? And I think it's ridiculous. And so I don't want to say keeping it real. I'm not a real honest person. Honesty is not the most profitable thing, but I think I'm the most vulnerable, and I'm good. I'm good at being vulnerable and conquering it, because I think there's also a wave of being vulnerable and just complaining and self-loathing about maybe one day you'll have strength, and kind of just like the meek will inherit the earth mentality of like, I don't know, this really leftist culture we see of like stay strong and hope and one day, it's kind of like that really like Christian morality, like hope, which is why Nietzsche was like, fuck all that. You gotta figure this shit out yourself. So I think I like that. So I think I like saying, here are my vulnerabilities. Here are, like, here's how I'm going to do it or get through it. And through all of this, I stay in shape. And that weird space of staying in shape has connected me to it's weird. Like, if I didn't
That's
work
your
out,
vessel.
oh my dude, if I didn't work out, I'd be the same person.
Yeah.
But the fact that I work out, people have so much interest in that. And to me, that's always been mind-blowing. That of all the things I do, of all the interests, I have so many good interests. And the weights are what people want to hear. And I say this to my girlfriend all the time. Like, she loves Beyonce. I love Beyonce. And I say, you think as smart and hardworking as Beyonce is, all she can offer us is songs for 3 minutes? You know what I mean? So it's like, it seems like you have to have enough humility that whatever the vessel is, ride the wave. Don't be above the vessel, right? Like, I don't care. Like, for instance, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's a bright guy. Like, his vessel is talking into a microphone. He's bigger than that.
Oh, yeah.
He's better than that. But if this is what people want, right? Like, you can't forget to be a capitalist. Like, give the market what it wants. Right. So, as much as I'd like to talk about, you know, Nietzsche and Ayn Rand and all this rational self-interest shit, I have to.
It's funny because they also say, the other side probably says, like, be very focused in your niche and the audience will be attracted to that, instead of trying to overgeneralize yourself and try to capture a wide audience. You're going to appeal to a select few. So if you started introducing more of that stuff, and you already do, I think that's what pulled me to you in the also.
I do.
Is the philosophical side.
I put the philosophical pill in the applesauce of fitness. You're gonna, like, you will know Thoreau before the day is over. But it's just in some weightlifting bullshit, right?
Right.
That's how I've done it. And
yeah.
I think that's why, like, the people I look up to the most when I say good work is because it's like, I'm like, looking at your setup here, you know a thing or two about what's going on here, but, like, you've laid it out to just look like a cool vibe. It's much deeper than that, right? Like, it's like figuring out those levels, like figuring out this, like it's been like there's different types of microphones, condenser, impact. It's deep, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think for someone to do depth, like really deep work, and then bring it to us and just make it seem like
relatable, digestible.
That's good work. To me, that's good work.
That's a good teacher. That's a good coach.
Which is why I'm so turned off from academia, because they will give you nothing but...
Oh, yeah. And then they'll move on without you.
Absolutely.
I get that. And so as an instructor myself, we have students that come from various backgrounds, some that have pre-medical knowledge, some that don't, some that are making career switches. So I acknowledge that, and I use different vernacular within each class. So And it's not only that, it's using anecdotes and stories to keep them awake. There's a trick to like
Absolutely.
teaching.
Absolutely.
And you want to immerse the student in the experience to keep them awake. I think we've been great educators in that aspect.
Is that so? I think I think for you, I didn't realize it till right now. I think in some way, that's kind of what I like about what I've seen with your content is that you're, I don't want to say watered down, that sounds negative, but you're educating, right? If you look at my content, I'm just educating. I'm
Yeah.
taking things I like and I'm
Right.
doing it.
Right.
So for you, before a subject or whatever, what do they call that in journalism? Me.
Guest.
A guest. What am I, a king? Before a subject enters my court. before a guest comes in, you know enough about them, roughly, that you want them to educate your audience in some way. You know what questions you want to pull, right? Like that's an art. To me, that's an art form, and it's like it's educating not through the lecture format that you might do here. No, I'm sorry. The other guy lectures. You do this. Sorry. You lecture.
You're right. The other lecture, but as both of us, we want to help the student come to the conclusion themselves.
Yes. Which
is even more power. It's so much more powerful.
So, which takes work.
Yes.
And I think for the type of content that you're putting out, and to be totally honest, the name Consciously Curious, there's power in that. It's like curiosity. A fucking orangutan's curious non-consciously, right? Like anything is curious. A dog is curious, right? But to
have intent,
that is everything. And I think to have intent, to me, is the most American thing. To have the information and to actively try, to me, that is the most American thing you can do, because we are bombarded with information in education. Dude, I have on my phone, for all the powerful things on that phone, the fact that I have a Wikipedia app in my phone is like, sometimes I'll go on and just read random stuff. I'm like, cool.
You're like 6 clicks deep into Wikipedia.
Right, dude, this is someone's life work. And I'm just like, cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so I think my active seeking of that in that curiosity, like that to me really makes all of the difference in the learning experience. So all we can do as educators is what we're really doing, right? I think it's nouveau or new age education, and that not everyone. I went up to a master's degree. I understand not everyone wants to sit there, take a test in a certain amount of time in that rigid academic structure. Some people want to feel like, hey, that's my friend through social media. I like what I don't want to go. So for instance, my girlfriend, she's the most practical human being I've ever met. She won't sit and talk to me about philosophy. But if I put up a post today, like we've been doing this puzzle, and like I'm not going to talk about like the Hindu cycle of birth, rebirth, death cycle. But if I say something like, man, we're halfway done, it makes me kind of sad because, we're going to get this thing, build it perfect, and have to tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's educate. Like, I'm still educated in the Hinduism of birth, rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go on and talk to her long form for 45 minutes about all the gods. And
it's all around us.
It's exactly. So I think for me, good work, again, full circle comes down to who is educating in the most powerful way, which I think why Twitter is so powerful and music is so powerful, right? Like these artists, in my opinion, the number one right now is, at least for me, is Kendrick Lamar. He is making these hippity hoppity black sounding music to suburban mothers in their minivan, and they like it. But if you listen close enough, he's actually like, you know what I mean? Like you can play a song next to Flow Riders and it fits.
God, yeah.
But if you look at content to content,
deep.
Kendrick is
profound.
Oh, dude, and he's making it sound good.
Yeah.
That to me is hip. That to me is good work, right? To make what we're doing in this academic building and to bring it to the people so that thousands and thousands of thousands of people like it. I feel sometimes a shame how many people like my posts.
If you look on that, well, that's how long we've been kind of. It's crazy.
That's a lot. That's a lot of heads. It's a lot of brains. That's a lot of brains.
It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, man. I feel like this is your de novo. You won't be here till you're
We're
dead.
definitely riding the wave.
You won't be here till you're dead.
Speaking of deathbed, I think on Austin's podcast, you mentioned when you're on your deathbed, you want to be able to say,
I'm ready to fucking go, man.
"Take me."
I'm ready to fucking go.
I had
dude.
this one at bat, and I fucking
I'm ready to
did it
go.
all.
And so, like, the way so I guess in some way to kind of repeat what I mean, what I said, and what I mean by that, I want to, whenever I do die, to be like, I am ready to go. I don't need an afterlife. I'm just ready for blackout, peace. I imagine my death will be a lot like it was in a dreamless sleep or before I was born, right? I don't remember the year 1900. It was kind of, it was nothingness, right?
Yeah.
As a Buddhist would put it, right? Nothingness is a real thing. In fact, this thing is just a quick blip of light and sensing, and then I'm back to the nothing. So with that, I'm ready to maximize this beam of light, this quick flasher of the high beams, like whatever you want to call this, this period. I want to maximize it in what I want, and I feel comfort in knowing that if I pick one thing, I can learn everything. So kind of where I'm getting to with writing this book is that the language I speak is exercise. The language you understand and speak to is exercise and strength training. Like, you understand that language. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you have classrooms full of students. It doesn't matter if you have millions of followers. If you can really get good at that thing, that language or that strength training, you can experience all of life through that one thing. All right. And so that's where I find comfort in the gym. I used to look at it like, oh man, I've spent so many hours in the gym. I haven't experienced the world and this and that. Reality, you have, right? Like, if you experience grief through losing a contest, you experience grief in any form, grief through losing a chess championship. It's all more or less the same. Machiavellian, I was gonna say the ends don't justify the means. The means themselves are just the means, right?
That means a lot, because a lot of times, I feel like we're just a factory pumping out EMT students, and it feels dull at times. And I feel like I need to move on to something.
That's just what they speak. So, again, I go to my, let's say, like the book, the New Testament, the book of the most popular book in the world, right? The New Testament. The book of first two books of Mark and Matthew, which are Jesus's words. In my opinion, those two books, some of the most important moral philosophy ever. Regardless of your spirituality or belief or whatever in Jesus, I think the moral philosophy of those two books, of the Golden Rule, all those basic tenets that Jesus said right in the Sermon on the Mount, are important. If you believe it or not, it's good philosophy. That philosophy has more or less been translated in every known language of the world. Mm-hmm. So for me, let's just say something like the Golden Rule. When you feel the Golden Rule in you, it doesn't matter if you heard it in fucking Mandarin or if you heard it in German. Whatever language you speak is just whatever. It doesn't matter if the language is this classroom or, I don't know, going through skydiving school. Like, the thing is an abstract thing. What matters is that, are you getting that feeling? Are you getting satisfaction? Are you getting competence? Are you getting challenge? And so for me, I think what is most important is pick something. Pick a language. It doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter if you experience what it feels like to be the best teacher here. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're the best performer ever at Coachella. Best feeling is best feeling. It's the same number of endorphins. It's the same serotonin mix.
Oh my God,
it's
that's
all
so
the same,
huge.
right? It's just drugs, man. So pick your language that makes these drugs, these hormones go off, and just ride with it. Ride that wave. The thing, there's no difference. It's not the new one in the sun, man. So if your feeling of beauty is a woman in a bar at 4 a.m. or your feeling of beauty is Zion National Park, pick it, man, and roll with it. It's the same.
Damn.
Pick what makes you tick. Be happy you have a language in which you can feel God, feel that truth, and just walk it. It's all the same.
I dig that.
That's why I lift weights and speak through weights.
Yeah.
Through who understands my language, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't come in and connect to the students the way you do. I don't speak that language to make them feel those important things in life, but I speak the language of lifting weights. And that's why the people love me, because I'm just a good person, just like you're a good teacher to them. It's really so that's why I can find peace when I'm out, because it's like I got it all. Sure, it was just one thing, but I got everything I needed to. I felt love, I felt loss, I felt grief, I felt up, I felt it all, I had it all. And sure, it was in a gym, but I got it. Or here, or trail, whatever fuck works, man.
Yeah.
Surfing, whatever, do it.
Right.
Yep.
Can you talk about coaching? I feel like a lot of, with social media, people want to monetize biz, and we talked about being the anti-influencer of influencers, and how does, and I guess we all both know the answer, but like to be successful in the social media game is to just ultimately be yourself.
Sometimes yourself sucks.
But isn't it profound to share what sucks at times?
No.
To show that you're human?
No, I don't think so. I don't. So this is probably the first pessimistic comment I have of the day.
Cool.
I don't think everyone needs to be sharing their life
on
social media. One of my favorite books is, I'm trying to think which one resonates a little more with this topic. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand.
Yeah, you mention her a lot.
Oh, dude, everyone should read her.
I haven't.
Everyone should read her, man. In this book, more or less, it's fucking hours of reading. It probably took me months to finish this. But it's basically a book about a story that encompasses rational self-interest. She's smart, like the Bible and like all great moral philosophers. She writes in story. That's how humans remember best. And this basically book goes on and has the story of a young man who's an architect and goes through these challenges in life, and he's not interested in people. It's just the work and all these things and all these different characters. And this guy, his name is Rourke. And there's this one part where he drops out of architect school or gets kicked out, and the dean asks him, like, Rourke, now that we're here alone, like, what do you think of me? And he says, I don't think of you at all. Like, that's his response. And it seems like to most people that is a rude and selfish person. But to me, that line explains rational self-interest the most. Now, what I just said is a very philosophical way of what Gary Vee has been saying. Just do you. Who gives a fuck about anybody else? Just do you, right? If you don't like something, you don't like it. If you like it, you like it. And I think the pursuit of forcing someone to share is just wrong. Like, I've always, since I was 6, I grew up with my brothers. To this day, dude, if I see something, I'm like, my brother's Troy, like, come look at this, come here. And we laugh, dude, that I've always have found new information and got excited about it and just shouted it. Social media just fits my archetype of how I like to share and educate. Like, I literally get off on finding things about this planet I didn't know or I find interesting and showing other people. Like, I have, God, millions of group texts with different groups I share stuff to. Like, I love sharing stuff. So social media is just a model that fits me. At the same time, Twitter, I struggled with this for a while. I've always struggled with Twitter. I've never been able to successfully build a following on it. I've never even tried, to be totally honest with you, to build a following on it. The problem with Twitter to me is that for me personally, I'm a thinker. If I start building a tweet, it needs to have a looseness of like the person who likes the knee-jerk response, right? Who just likes to say stuff. Twitter is made for that person. There's been at least 2 or 3 times in this podcast where I've took a pregnant pause for like an awkward 5 seconds.
Can't do that. Yeah, you can't
right?
do that
Like,
on Twitter.
That's not what Twitter is for. So Twitter just doesn't fit me. So I've met people who are crushing it in what they do. They're just a very silent, A-type, mathematical. Like, why am I forcing them to get on social? That only takes away from what their strength is. So I don't think that everyone needs to be on social pushing out what they do. I think social media should fit your type of socializing that you like,
It's interesting,
and
yeah.
that's in what you do.
'Cause
And
aren't they concerned of branding and being top of mind, like when they're trying to maybe obtain clients, you know, like
so I think that's the other thing too, right? It's like sometimes if you want to obtain clients and be out in the world, then whatever your, I don't know, youngin personality type is, you need to make sure you're finding those hacks to get your voice out and to get yourself out. There are some people who I think do genius level of work. For instance, let's take a genius, Albert Einstein.
okay.
Right? Albert Einstein did a genius level of work. I think the world can agree on that. I think lots of people have done a genius level of work, but Einstein being one of the more popular ones. Einstein, this dude had like a contract with his wife, who was also a relative of his, to like not talk to him certain hours a day. A contract, man.
Wow.
Like not talk to him certain hours a day, to let him focus in certain times, and basically just to be an assistant for him to vessel his greatness. He was reclusive. He wasn't that like socially out there. He wasn't great at marketing. Einstein had a friend. I think his name was Emerson. I forgot his first name. His last name was Emerson. They kept a dialogue between each other during his life work. This dude Emerson was the more out there one. So basically, he was the cheerleader for Einstein. So if Einstein did something, Emerson would be like, "Yo, dude, I'm going to this conference. I'm gonna go show them your stuff." And Einstein basically was more or less by himself during a lot of his work. He was a terrible teacher. Like he tried to teach for a little bit when he left for World War II and came to America. It didn't work out well, so they ended up just doing research. He was socially not great, so he basically outsourced another scientist who understood his work and was his cheerleader for him. He didn't do it on purpose. They just had a good relationship that way. So if you're the type of person where you don't want to go and talk and shout and you want clients, you need to realize that marketing is an important part. And if your personality isn't that of a marketer, get someone to market for you. Because, dude, I'm telling you, I got an MBA and I went to marketing school. I went to school with loud mouths. Like I went to school with the most arrogant, ridiculous personality you can imagine.
Yeah.
In fact, I was an introvert during most of my education compared to them, right? And so I think there's plenty of ways to navigate the social media space, and I think you don't ever need to feel like you need to change. If you want to, for instance, like two of my favorite influencers who are quite introverted, Ryan Holiday and Mark Manson, they write long form and they drop like once a year. They drop like
when they release a book,
whenever,
yeah,
and they drop power, man. Like, and they drop like they're not going on Twitter every day.
No,
right?
But when they speak, people are listening. Similar to you.
Similar to me,
yeah.
Right? So I had to learn how to get out of that like chase the algorithm, post every day, type thing, right?
Stuck
right.
In that, yeah.
They get stuck in a game, and so I think it's like at some point, especially in your branding, you have to make sure that you own your brand and your brand doesn't own you. You're not a slave to, oh shit, it's 7:00, I gotta post. Oh shit, blah blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like I put up a post today. What's today's date?
Is it easier said now that you're successful though?
That I have money.
Yeah.
That I'm not even gonna say successful. That I have money. I will say money. Like when I'll be honest. I'll say the number. When my income first passed $75,000, I stopped giving a fuck.
Good for you.
And I got better and just kept skyrocketing, right? Like, and it's just like, it's nuts.
When you let go.
When you let go, you get free, right? And when you get free, like, you can really be creative, right? And I feel like there's this weird, and it's in economics is, for me, like a model of all of life statistically. So like the same way we kind of have the idea of like a poverty trap. So in economics, for anyone to understand what a poverty trap is, it's basically like we have this thing called a poverty line, which we hear about all the time. For those who are below the poverty line, I don't know where the poverty line is now. I would say probably somewhere $17,000 or something. Yeah, something like that. That basically means that you have enough money to just get by on the cheapest food, the cheapest housing, the cheapest clothing, but you literally have no money to invest a dollar. So wealth in this country comes from investing. Basically, most people's investment in their lifetime is going to be a house.
Mm-hmm.
That's most people's main investment. If you buy a house for $100,000, even if it doesn't appreciate, you will pay into that investment, and when you leave, you'll get at least $100,000 back. Even if you don't make money, you didn't spend any money, right? You just had to be above that line enough with enough disposable cash to cushion you, to float. And so, like, I think once you get above that line in followers, money, anything, you can start breathing and start really investing into anything you want to do in the way you want to do it. And so, like, there's an initial, I think, amount of lack of control because you just want to get noticed. You just want to get your wings about you, right? And I think that part is
that's
very
what a lot. That's who we're talking to right now.
right. Okay.
Yeah, it's the come up, right? And they're trying to make a name for themselves,
Right. Right.
And the fact that they're going for it is great, right? To take that leap, because you with your degrees, you could fall back on a job downtown.
I guess. I've never even had a resume.
And that's what I'm struggling with too. I've never worked in marketing or management or
Then
business,
don't.
right?
Then
but here I am getting an MBA. It's like,
then don't, man. Fucking then don't do it. Like, I'm telling you. So for people who are in this beginning phase, getting your, I don't want to say cloud up, name up, recognize. The way that I did it, and I'm speaking to people of my personality, focus on good work. No one gives a shit how loud you are, how well timed your algorithm is. No one cares what gas you... No one. What gets people fucking turned on is, holy shit, that's good. That's what people like. Whether it be music, whether it be science, whether it be a fucking doctor. People like good in the Western world. Spend your time being good. And here's the ironic part. It takes a while to get good. It takes a long time to get good. It takes a lot of really lack of confidence in it, right? People start off with so much confidence and they get on and they do this whole thing. Hey, you guys, what's up, YouTube? Today we're going to just, dude, it's like this fucking aura of I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing, right? If you look, if anyone, if you go to my YouTube is the Natty Pro, if you go to some of my first videos that I ever put up on YouTube 10 years ago.
I miss those.
Don't look at them. They were ridiculous. It was basically me with like a Sony Handycam, the old one, right? With a fucking 4 gigabyte memory card in my studio apartment in college, going on and on and on and on about how I feel about my contest prep for like 17 minutes. Dude, I just did it because I had nothing to lose. Sure enough, I got good at that after a while. I started getting good at that craft.
With sharing the content. And then you talked about when you don't do it for a while, it's like you have to hop back on the bike.
It's weird, yeah. You kind of feel rusty, right? You're not as good. Right. And then if you don't do it for a while, you come back. And then, of course, you're out the algorithm, right? And then it's like, oh, people don't even really like my shit or something like that.
No, it's the algorithm, you know?
It's right. But it's just the algorithm. People love you, right? Like, that's one thing my girlfriend always tells me. She's like, people love you. Like, I don't have confidence issues, but I have, like, confidence issues with who gives a fuck. Because I don't give a fuck about anybody else's stuff. Like, the only people who I really give a fuck about are, like, in my opinion, what I call, like, the gods, right? Like Nietzsche. What did he say? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I look at, like, the god, like, that's who I chase, right? Okay. So anyone second place through 1 millionth, I don't give a fuck about. I just care about first place. Like, that's who I idolize myself after. And it's always been, oddly enough, if you're not that, your confidence is a bit low. So I can write something amazing. I'm like, this shit fucking sucks, right? So it's like, in developing that good work and trying to come up, I think you have to, at some point, stop thinking what the audience wants and start focusing on what do I think is good, right? Because one thing Ayn Rand talks about in her philosophy in Rational Self-Interest is basically that what's good for the individual is what's good for everybody. For example, these pictures of you hiking, some person at all of these parks, it's always this one person. It's like the John Henry Trail or something like that. One dude, one woman, whoever went there first said, I think this is the path of least resistance for me. This is the trail that I'm going to follow.
John Murr.
There you go. It's always some dude named John M.H. Americana,
Yeah.
right?
John Murr.
John Murr. John Moore Trail, right?
Yeah.
This one dude, wasn't thinking about you, wasn't thinking about the national park system. That wasn't like, this dude was like, I'm just going to blaze this path that's best for me. Sure enough, that one individual, that path that was best for the individual ended up being the best path for everyone, right? And that's good taste. That's good work. It's that do something. Like, when was the last time you actually impressed yourself, right? Like, that's what I aim to do in my work. It's like if you're putting out shit and you're not impressed, you think someone else is going to be impressed, right? Like, my goal, my everyday is like, write something that like I like, right? I'm like, yo, that shit is good. If I think it's good, everyone's gonna think it's good. Yeah. So in my come up, in my initial phase, stop doing the, hey, YouTube, like, that's just not good. You know it's not good. Stop talking like that. Like, find your own
voice.
Find what feels good to you, to the individual. Because if you can tap into that and be like, yo, that shit's dope.
And then indirectly it will speak to the
because they'll think it's dope. And like, you can't forget that, like, you are a person just like the audience, right? If one person says, this is fucking dope, me, right? If like me, I was like, yo, your shit's dope, dude. I like it. I'm just one person, which means that you didn't do this by accident. You've figured this out and put in enough obsessive thought to get it good, right? And you'll keep improving, and you'll keep improving over time. And I really think that's really what it boils down to, is making good work for yourself and just not giving a fuck about the audience. Just, do I like it? Don't put out bad shit. Like, you're not gonna get away with it if you put out bad shit. You put out something out
just to sprinkle in there. You know, it's been a while, so let me just.
Right. You just let me just put a feeler out there. Those feelers never work.
Yeah.
Put out dope shit, and if you can get that, in my opinion, that cathartic feeling with everything you do, with good work, with how you express yourself, with how you exercise, eat, you will get to your deathbed, and just be like, oh, all right, get me the fuck out of here. I did a great job.
I hear that a lot from Gary Vee, but I like the way you put it into words. He's just like, it's easier to say, like, you know, live with no regrets, but like when you're like, just take me.
I think it's also, I think it could be live with no regrets, and it could also be live with trying extremely hard at everything, right? So it's not to the point where, you know, if there's a few dirty dishes, you're a stickler, but it's like, just be in a perpetual state of like, is this good? Like, dude, down to the point where it's like, I'm not an A-type person at all, but I just like to push it. Like, can I hang my shirts and color code them? Just to push, just to try some. I don't give a fuck if it's color coded. I'm not anal about it, but it's like, can I just try? Can I try harder? And that's my constant theme in life. It's like, can I try harder? Can I improve this? Because when I do try harder, I get that drug. I get that, like, my body rewards me like a fucking Pavlovian dog. It's like, when I try hard and it comes through, I literally get like a fucking, like, a hit of like cocaine in my brain. It's like, and so like, I'm basically chasing that high through work, right? Is it good? Is it good? Is it good? Is it good? And when it's good, dude, the high is incredible. Like, you know, when you do something good, just the next day you're just like, oh, or if you get like accepted in the school, or like, dude, that high, like, that's what I'm chasing all the time. Doesn't matter if it's
they come in various forms. Yeah.
Every form.
Yeah.
Every
I think
form.
that's what a lot, including myself, don't understand. Sometimes you forget
everything.
It doesn't have to be traditional or formal.
Everything, man. Like, how good are you watering those fucking plants if they're real? You know,
they're not real. They're not even mine. I stole them.
There you go. I try to do with everything. So it's like, obviously you can't be OCD about. You'd be OCD if you try to do a good job with everything. Some people do, right? But now they're a slave to it. My thing is just like whatever I'm focusing on, whatever's right in front of me, the task at hand.
Yeah.
And dude, Buddhists have been talking about this for years. Be in the present, right? This is nothing new. It's just really trying to do a good job on your work, and then also evaluating why you want to do it. So when you really get good at something, like by time you are, building your audience, and you get to a point where you get to like, that those 10,000, for me 10,000 is that magic number in like for an influencer. When you get to that 10,000 subscribers, by time you will have gotten there, you have either done one or two things: completely sold yourself, right, as a joke or sexually, or something, like completely just become a fool.
These are some examples on. Oh yeah,
right.
Sure,
so that's
sure.
one path to it.
Yeah.
And I think the other path to it, which I find more engaging, is the path of, man, I stopped giving a fuck about the numbers. My interest is like, what's my lighting like? What's my sound like? Like, what can I do to improve? And if you just really focus on those small details, like the goodness of the work, you'll look up, and like some months I'll work, like I'll just focus on work. I'll just do the best job I can. And then my accounting will be like, dude, like we broke a record this month. And I'll have no idea I even broke a sales record. Like, I'll be like, that's great. But my focus was do the best work, be as thorough, be as complete as possible. And I think doing good work is becoming this lost art, because it's just the systems we live in, right? You can get an A in our institutions. Like, your students can graduate and become professionals in their field from kindergarten all the way up to when they finish, and never truly impress themselves with any of their work. They just got through the system. So I feel like in this game of entrepreneurship and content, and like really trying to put yourself out there, it may be the first time that you have to impress yourself. And you will find that it's extremely hard, but it's not impossible. You can do it a lot. And in fact, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And to me, it's the best high of any drug I've ever had in my life, dude, is impressing myself. That shit feels fucking amazing. So, for instance, what would impress myself tonight? What would impress myself tonight is if me and you have an engaging day, we both feel good about it. I worked on the train, I'll work on the train back. If I can get to the gym, have a good workout, do a little work, and here's the kicker, and shower before I go to bed. Because you feel like shit if you don't shower.
Oh yeah.
Right? If I can do that, and if I get to bed at like 4 a.m., I will, dude, that's a win. I impress myself. I didn't think you can pull that off, Ryan. Like, that's what I live for. I live for impressing myself. And I've gone into this little cave of impressing myself so much that sometimes I forget thousands of people are looking up to me as some role model, when in fact, all you have to do is turn inward, and you can be, wow, that's terrible, as powerful as me, as powerful as anybody, right? Anybody we see with success, all they're doing is turning inward and impressing themselves. And when you do that, you create a bit of an audience, right? I think about it as like when you go out and like the guy who like starts dancing really like that sick shit, and it's like, he's just dancing, man. He's not trying to impress you, but you might attract a crowd by accident, right? He's just really trying to feel himself. So I feel like in this country, the way you get it is by letting go of it. Don't try to grab the people. Don't try to be it. Be the best version you can. I mean, and everyone says this. The army has been saying this. Everyone has been saying this.
Yeah.
It's redundant.
It is.
But it's so redundant that it's ignored. It's almost like be yourself and drink water. The two most powerful things you can do, we're not doing.
And people aren't doing it.
It'll change your life. Like if you woke up
right.
and drank like 25 ounces of water every month, your life would change radically. But we won't. It almost seems like it's too easy for us to do. To be yourself, right? It's like too easy. Like and again, it's back to that phrase I kept saying. My ego is out of control. Like, is your ego so large that you refuse to believe that just drinking 20 ounces every morning will change your life? That's how big your ego is. No, it's gotta be. I gotta grind. It's really, I'll be honest, I don't work that hard. Sure, maybe there's some days where it's 15 hours or something like that, but it's not hard. I'm just out here trying to impress Ryan, and I got some low standards compared. You know what I mean? It's about showering and washing dishes for me.
Yeah, it's you, man. Because you said in another episode that like even though people look up to you, you're still fucking up left and right. You make mistakes
Oh,
left and right.
Jesus
And
fucking
all these
Christ.
profound posts are just your journals. Like you're
That's it.
correcting your own mistakes.
Just fucking up. Yeah, I'm just one big fuck up, and I'm vulnerable, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But I don't. I think it's. But I think it's also too. Like I have some girlfriends, female friends, I should say, and they'll go on and complain about something, and they always say this to me. They're like, "Can you just listen? Can I just vent?" And my answer is always no. Either figure it out or just shut up, right? Like that's one thing I've always been very intolerant to is just venting. So in my post, in anything I put out, I feel like venting is just the most useless thing a person can do, right? It's like you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Like if you can vent, it's like
This is in the forest tools.
problem,
Yeah.
solution, right? Like
You're halfway there, exactly.
you're halfway there.
You're complaining.
Venting,
right?
venting is the first step. It's good. Complaining is good. Get it out. But don't just say, "Oh, I don't know." You fucking are you insane? Like that's one thing
It's a circle. You're just gonna keep coming back to it.
it's a circle. So I think that's one thing that I just have never subscribed to is like, can I just vent? I've always wanted solution. Needless to say, right? In a romantic relationship,
Exactly. Like I have to, okay.
right? In a romantic relationship, right? Like it does cause some bumpiness in the relationship because like, dude, sometimes like, I'm not gonna lie, like my girlfriend makes more money than me. Like she works more than me. Like she's a fucking hard worker. Some days after working for literally 13 hours, she wakes up like 5 and like comes home like she just wants to just like watch TV and talk about her day. And I'm just like, okay, so why didn't you think about this or what'd you say? And she's like, just shut up, just listen. And no, I won't, man. I won't. Like I won't subscribe to that. Like people are always constantly trying to dim your light, tell you to be less powerful, tell you to think less. I've had this my whole life, right? I would hang out like I was kind of like, I guess, like a jock and popular in high school, but I've always been this, right? So it's like you will see the superficial image of me and you want to hang out with that guy and stuff like that. And then I would always talk to these girls and they would talk to me about their problems. And they'd always say, this was when I was young, 15, 16, they would always be like, yeah, you just think too much. And I would always, like, I would end a relationship with you if you told me I think too much. Like, you don't think enough. Like, I've always been very relentless about it, stubborn about, like, don't stop thinking. Like, don't stop problem solving. And I think if there's one thing people will try to do with high levels of consciousness or thought is they dim it. They always try to dim thought. It's like, literally, what's that book, George Orwell book, Animal Farm or 1984. Yeah, like it's like they're always trying the thought police. They're always trying to make you
stay in line.
Don't think, right? And so I think that's always been my thing with my posts and why they've been successful. It's that problem solution. They're always problem solution. I'm not just like this emotional feelsy, here's how I feel.
No, it's practical.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be, man. I want to solve that problem and die good. That's my goal.
Yeah, I'm sick of like people that are just teaching others how to teach.
Yeah, right? Like what do you do?
Fuck.
Like what do you do? Right? Like and that's the thing I kind of think that like we're getting into with social media. It's like people are trying to step into the position of teacher, but it's like I don't even want to
They haven't earned it.
It's not only like they haven't earned it, but it's pure ego. Right? Like I remember like when I first started doing seminars, it's like 2012, 13, I would always hear people say, I want to help people. I want to empower people. I want to change people. And it comes back to that Ayn Rand philosophy. Have you empowered yourself? Do you know how to empower yourself? Do you know how to change yourself? Right? It's like, it's egotistical to think that you can teach a black belt when you even haven't gotten your white belt yet. Right? And that's kind of like the subconscious sort of like that like mother superior complex that people have. It's like how do I gain power through a nice way? So instead of just saying I want power, I want to be powerful, right? The ego finds a way to be like, well, I want power, but I want to help or I want to give or I want to be like, you just want power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like the only thing, in my opinion, it's why I think we're living in interesting times right now. Dude, I feel like power just doesn't give up, right? Meaning, like, if you look at what's going on in our country right now, you have and I'll be clear for if you haven't heard it by now, I'm a very moderate in terms of my U.S. politics, right? I really, really, really like social programs and helping the low get up, and I really, really like also not like wasting money and just giving handouts. I'm pro business. Like, I'm very like American. I like the best things of this country. Like I'm not, excuse me, I'm not right. Definitely not a Republican, but I'm definitely not left either. Like, I'm just
Yang Gang? Yang Gang?
what is that?
Andrew Yang?
Oh, I don't like that guy.
Okay.
I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy.
Okay.
I don't like.
That's a different conversation.
Okay, so Andrew Yang, let me be clear. I don't know much about him or his platform, but when I heard and I read on his site just his stances and then like universal basic income, I just disagreed wholeheartedly.
You don't just give people money?
Dude, so all right. Historically, if you look at the true, I think, disenfranchised groups in America are poor white Southerners, Black people, and the Native American, right? Those are the true disenfranchised groups, I think, in America. Mm-hmm. Poor white people, they've always been duped by these Republicans. Like, oh no, you like vote for me, you'll be rich one day, and I'll take care of you.
Why?
They keep falling for it, right? They keep falling for it. Poor Black people, they keep falling for it, right? And like everyone, all these disenfranchised groups basically are disenfranchised Native Americans because they keep falling for, as Trump will call it, bad deals, right? So, at least in my culture, I think there's been one philosopher, civil rights leader that has just gotten it on the head. And it's been Malcolm X. I have this Malcolm X tattoo.
Oh, no way, okay.
Dude, Malcolm X basically had a philosophy other than his complete hatred in his young years of like white people calling him the devil and stuff, which he let that go in some time. White people are not the devil, let me be clear. And I always have a joke. I'm like, have you ever been to a country without white people? You don't want to go there. Like, go to fucking Haiti. Go. Like, you don't want to be like, we need...
Shacks.
Right, So anyways, he had this philosophy where he said, like, if you put the history together of disfranchised people, it's basically because they keep falling for the tricks of the left, the tricks of the liberal being like, oh, well, I'll go in, I'm loving because, like, I am rich and I have all these things, but I feel bad for you, so, you know, I'll give you a can of soup every now and then, and I'm good, and I get to feel good about it, right? Versus the far right, this is back in the 50s and 60s, right? Like I would rather have Donald Trump instead of like a Hillary Clinton type, because at least Donald Trump will be like, yeah, your people, blah blah blah, and at least he puts me in a position to be like, I gotta help myself, right? I gotta do something myself, right? Versus the left, who's like, oh no, universal basic income. You're weak. You came to this country as a slave. You had no choice. You were a slave for hundreds of years, 300 years.
I think he wants to help move that poverty line.
Here's what I'm getting to.
Sure.
Right? You're slave for 400 years in this country, history of slavery. Literally, one day in like 1867, it's like, all right, none of you can read. There's millions of you. None of you have power. None of you have money. But you know what? You can go free.
Yeah.
And not only can you go free, but I'm going to literally terrorize you for the next 100 years, right? And so if you think about that progress of, obviously, what it takes to be millions of slaves, be terrorized and treated unfair for the next 100 years, and then in 100 years you get civil rights, right? Million Man March for Martin Luther King 100 years later. Even 100 years in, let's say someone who was born in 1967. If you were born in 1967, still, I was born in 1987. I believe I am of the first Black generation who is getting somewhat of a fair shake at 30 years old, my age. Like, I can walk into a bank and be like, hey, I want this loan, right? Go one generation back. My dad. If my dad walked into a bank in 1984 in Los Angeles and was like, hey, I want this loan, there's still some racism going on, right? So it's like the story of the Negro in America, as Malcolm X put it, is just basically one that's truly disenfranchised. And to say I'm going to lift the poverty line, how do you erase 400 years of the slave mentality in black folks? Like, because you're going to give us that, and all you're going to do is let us buy more Gucci and rims and shit with it, right? Give us that, but like, how are you going to change us? Like, how are we going to empower ourselves? Which is why I look at other foreign groups, right? If you look at Asians who come to this country, East, West Asia, doesn't matter. Sure, they might come here and force their kids to fucking be doctors, but at least they have some sense of themselves.
There's a lot of, and you've probably heard of a couple, like a lot of good groups that are in those areas of Chicago that are empowering their own communities.
And dude, that's the
from the inside.
Only way. It's the only way.
Because it's relatable.
So, if the left, right, continues to say, "Don't worry, we got you. Universal basic income. We'll get you up. We'll do these things." Like, the only way for a disenfranchised group to bring themselves up is from leaders on the inside and to have role models of our own, which is why, dude, like, I can't lie, like, Jay-Z is one of the most important people to me, right? Like, to see that, it's like, I've seen it a million times with white people or women or anybody. I've seen a lot of people go do it. But for me to see Jay-Z or Oprah,
or Tyler Perry,
to me, it's like, I know it sounds nuts, but it's like, I can do that. I literally, I still think that to this day. Like, Jay-Z is a billionaire, and I'm like, literally, when that happened, I was like, I want to have $1 million worth of property in the next 10 years. Like that, like, I knew I could do it, but I didn't know, right? It's like, it's a psychological chain, right?
Yeah.
And if you give us universal basic income, sure, maybe there will be, let me be clear, I am 100% from a third world country, like my genetics purely, right? This brain, this IQ, which is largely genetic, there's one of me's there now, millions of them.
Oh yeah.
Lots of them, right? So it's like, let's say that you have 1 million impoverished people, and then you have, I'm just using me for example, and out of that 1 million, you have 3,000 me's, and you give them universal basic income. You dim the light of 3,000 of our future leaders, because it's like, you give us that income, we start believing and waiting on your handout, and it's just kind of it's a new way to keep poor white people, disenfranchised groups at the bottom. Like, I think what will happen if you understand if you understand the economy of things, they will initially come up out of that poverty cycle, right? But very few, for what the money is worth, I think, to America, is not worth it. I think it's better to take that same money for universal basic income. And as you've been working at UFC, you know the city pretty well, dude. Just give us some legit community centers with full-time staff, open till 2 a.m. sometimes. For like,
there was a previous alderman in Chicago. He was running for treasurer. Amaya Pawar. He's a huge supporter of public banks, and I think he mentioned in another episode how no one's giving out loans. Like that's the only way to come up, you know?
Yep, absolutely, dude. So I feel like this is not just about black people. It's just the story I know and the lens I speak through. But for you to be truly empowered, more handouts don't help.
It's scary. I mean, but his thinking comes from jobs being wiped away from automation. So then,
right,
in turn, you do have to re-educate these people that are losing their jobs.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good point in theory. Just like I think the Communist Manifesto, I think, is one of the best ideas of government I've ever read. But there's been, not to date, one successful communist government, really and truly, right? Like, Russia is the biggest one. Their government's falling apart. Hong Kong is currently turning up on China. Hong Kong is, to be real, Hong Kong is the hub of China's success. If it weren't for that small capitalist loophole, China wouldn't have the trade and freedom to do what it does, right? Like, Hong Kong's kind of like the center place. So again, like, China is a booming communist country, but it has that little capitalist spot, right? Same thing with Singapore and these little weird places of capitalism that you can really get a chance. So I think where my arguments on universal basic income are still negated is that we don't need average people for what's most important to the American life. We need, per generation, one Jeff Bezos. We just need one. And that one will go so far and he'll be so extremely rich that he will motivate an entire generation of millions of people to chase that one. So I think the idea in America is that like one person needs to be so unnaturally talented that if you dim their light too early on by saying like, all right, well, if you do automation and get super innovative, we're going to punish you by taking out a bunch of your money from a tech company or something like that. I think the idea of punishing people's money in America, no matter how much you make, it's a terrible idea. The truth is, these people don't need more money, right? They don't need to be richer. But at the same time, let's say you were genetically born as a mathematical genius and you worked hard and you were Bill Gates, right? How would you feel that if you dedicated your life to something and then the government was just like, hey, we're going to take all of your work and forcefully take a lot more of your money and distribute it off to people. And not only are we going to take it, but you have no say in how it's going to be managed. Mind you, the person telling you
That's
this,
the scary part.
the person telling you this is some fucking senator who makes $60,000 a year,
biz.
who doesn't even know what you do.
That's scary. But on the other side,
Mhm.
they can afford to lose. They can afford to be taxed.
Who are you to say that as an American? That's my Republican in me. It's like, who are you? Like, so as of Ryan, I agree. I can afford to be taxed. I got more than enough money. But is it my right to tell someone what to do with their money? Unfair. So it's like if they can afford to be taxed more,
Mm-hmm.
I can afford to be taxed more too, right? Like why not? Right? And this is where it gets into this weird socialist blur. It's like, why are we cherry picking out our best? Like, shouldn't we be encouraging our Michael Jordans?
But to the point where they're still like we're talking millions of dollars per hour.
I have a friend, Adi Cool. He's one of the smartest people in finance I ever met. The last time I saw him, I was in New York. I was at Madison Square Garden, and the middle of the day, man, he's like, Ryan, like he saw me and we had lunch, dude.
Oh, that's nuts.
What are the chances,
awesome.
right? What are the chances? So he's one of the smartest guys I know. He works for his initial job was with IBM doing something nuts, and he's rich. He's got a lot of money, and this was when I was in DeNovo still, and I knew what DeNovo was doing and the amount of money that I saw. I remember I used to want to be a millionaire, and then I thought like, for what? Like, what am I gonna do with all this, right? And I since then have kind of accepted like, I don't want to manage that much money in my life. Like, I know how hard I want to work, how much I want to make, and things like that. And Audie's thing, he grew up, Indian dad, surgeon, one of the best in what he does. You know, those weird surgeons who make millions and shit.
Right.
And he just makes dollars. And I asked him that day, I was like, why do you want more money? What is it? And he was like, think about it like this. He was like, where you're at financially, you're thinking about yourself. He was like, when you start getting into the tens of millions, you have influence. He was like, let's say you see something on the news you don't like. He's like, what do you do about it? He's like, I have $10 million. I can go to my local government and change it. And he's like, with money comes a different type of power, right? And so let's say we have a champion like Warren Buffett, who's our Michael Jordan, and Bill Gates. They can be taxed more. They can stand to be taxed more. But what they've decided to do on their own is give up half of their fortune to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they're damn near eradicating polio, eradicating bad sewage, sanitation, facing the energy issue. So it's like,
You let them decide.
you let the same way Darwin said you let evolution do its thing. Don't be, because here's the thing, you're gonna get Rockefellers, right? You're just gonna get bad rich people, right? That's just you're gonna get greedy bad rich people. But we might get we might get an MJ, we might get our champion. So it's like with Elon Musk, dude, I shouldn't say, well, Elon, you got a lot of automation, now I gotta punish you. I don't want to make Elon bitter with his power of his money. I also don't want to tread lightly and be afraid of him, right? And say, do whatever you want. I don't think, as Bernie Sanders makes a good point, rich people shouldn't do whatever they want. But I think at the same time, we should stop seeing you don't need more money. Sure, they don't need more money. But what if this person, like Elon Musk, was like, yeah, I just want to make PayPal. And what if we just clipped his wings on PayPal, right? He took all that PayPal cash and went on and do Tesla. He took all that Tesla cash and went on to do SpaceX. Dude, this,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
The U.S. space program was dead. So I think if you let the rich be productive, you tax them properly, right? We will make more than enough money, I think, as a country off the rich. But I think to forcefully say...
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like, we're not taxing them appropriately.
You can't, right? So that's and that's the sort of the problem. Is that
Okay.
you can't tax them properly because it comes down to a catch me if you can game, like the IRS, like we were saying. So the problem I think with our taxation system is that the U.S. government always gets its money, right, in one way or another. So even if you say somebody like Amazon, right, one of the most successful companies in the United States, and then like there's this big thing where Amazon basically didn't pay any taxes, right? Yeah. Amazon didn't pay any taxes. Amazon paid its employees. All of them paid taxes. Even if Amazon took that bank and put it in the Cayman Islands somewhere or something like that. Eventually, even if it's like tax, it wasn't taxed at the time. Eventually, even if this money is just in the Cayman Islands, over the next 300 years of the Bezos royalty generation, they're going to slowly take money out of there and purchase U.S. products, and those companies will pay tax on that income. So income get taxed. Oh, it always gets taxed. There's no, like, the only guarantee in life are death and taxes. Now, who pays the taxes? You can evade those. But someone ultimately economically will pay those taxes. Taxes always get paid. That's unfair, right? The company that made that money should pay those taxes, right? They're just making someone else passing through taxes.
I think that's my hang up. That's the thing.
Unfair.
Yeah.
But the issue with that,
I agree with the productivity.
but I think the issue with that goes to it stems to a larger institutional issue in government, which is that let's just say for the sake of example, in America, we rank talent A through F. Let's just say, me and you, we are somewhere in our potential B+ through A- players in America. The problem with B+ through A- players is that in these hours I've been here with you, not one of us in our great minds has mentioned going into politics and helping out this country. We want to work in the private sector. We want to do something else. I think the problem with politics, the pay structure and the incentive structure, it's only attracting C, D+ talent. No one wants to be a politician. No one is smart. All these people no one smart wants to be a politician.
What about Andrew Yang?
Andrew Yang is a politician after being...
That's what I'm saying. After from the private sector.
Exactly. And so is Donald Trump, right?
Oh God, yeah.
All of them, right? So if you look at if you look at Barack Obama's a fucking lawyer, went to Harvard, man.
Right.
Like he got his rocks off. He made some, like, you know what I mean? So it's like all of these people. Michelle Obama even worked at a law firm. So all of these people who are in politics, they start off great. They go and get that money. And if you punish people too harshly, they're like, man, fuck that government. I'm never going to work for them. What's the point? So I think we need to find a weird balance with, if you look at politics, at least in the sense of like who runs for office. Sure, maybe the elected officials after time run for office. But if you go to Washington, D.C., it's those same post office-like employees running the IRS, right? Like, who wants to work at the IRS when you can work at fucking Goldman Sachs? Who the fuck? You know what I mean? So it's like, I personally think we should pay our politicians a lot more. We should pay our teachers a lot more. They'd be less susceptible to bribes, to corruption. Because, like, go fuck it. Dude, if somebody was like, hey, man, if you go and be a state senator, you can make $160,000. You think I wouldn't run for that? Right? But if you tell me I'm going to make $70,000 and wear a shitty suit with Dick Durbin, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I can run circles around that. So I think some things just come down economically with our system. Like, if I were laced with some cash, maybe I'd be less corrupt. Maybe I'd be more. And the only reason Andrew Yang can go out there and speak his heart out, only reason Trump can go out there and speak his heart out, whatever his version is, because he's already rich. Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier. A certain amount of money, you just don't give a fuck anymore. Yeah. Right? So it's like...
Yeah, you can buy the Washington Post.
You can buy the Washington Post. And then have the president complain about it every week. So yeah, I think that's a dilemma. It's like, how do we get more not only into elected office, how do we get more talent into the public
That's funny. Yeah.
good, period?
I mean, that's why I left my paramedic job, because I was making 11 an hour.
For saving lives.
Seriously. Yeah.
You got to be shitting me.
Yeah. So yeah, if there was more money in the public sector, for sure.
For saving lives.
Yeah.
That's nuts, man.
Average, and now that's below average. Average is like 15 an hour.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
I don't know.
Yeah, dude. And then it's not like it's not big business. These ambulance rides.
Nope, they're making their dough.
They're making a dope. Dude, an ambulance itself is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I was randomly like looking up like Los Angeles' budget one year, and I saw they bought a few ambulances. They're damn near like $2 million in ambulance.
And I think, is that stock? I mean, stocked, unstocked, all that stuff.
That's
you know.
that's
oh my God.
decked out.
Yeah.
Right. It's
$2 million.
versus if you just bought that van plain.
Used, like, drove from Michigan. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Wow, we
Yeah.
covered a wide range of topics. I dig it.
Yeah, I hardly talked about working out, but I guess that's kind of again, because it goes to my opening statement.
Right.
I don't identify much
That's
as a person in
interesting.
fitness because I have so many other things I think about and write about and go on about, and I just every day at like 1:00 or noon, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go work out. I'll be back.
Was there a point where you struggled to get clients?
No.
No. Okay.
Is
Is it because you built a brand so well early
I
on
held out on.
before Fortis?
I turned down an insane amount of
Oh, okay.
work
okay.
and clients and things like that.
Okay.
I never wanted to coach. While I was in school, I didn't want to coach. You know,
Yeah,
maybe I would take
that's
like
that overcommitment and leading to undercommitment. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the whole segment. Yeah.
Yep. So I never wanted to. I just like I said, when I do something, I want to, like nothing. I don't get anxiety or stress much unless I'm doing a bad job. Like if my day is going bad, I'm just an unpleasant person to be. Not unpleasant, but a very quiet person to be around. Like today, I
You're
woke
funk.
up. Yeah, I'm just quiet. I'm just trying to focus. Like I'm trying to, like I said, impress myself. And then once I feel like I impress myself, I can start opening up. It's
Yeah.
like I almost feel like I don't deserve to talk until like I'm doing a good job. And it could be anything, right? It could be like, so today I had to, me and my girlfriend, we bought this like dolly literally for furniture and shit. I had to figure out in the condo where to put that, do some Amazon returns, do some other shit for like my nephew and some other work things. And like, they're not big or hard or challenging things, but my day just felt like until you do a good job on that, I won't feel in the mood to like relax,
Okay.
talk or anything. It's probably a bad habit of mine, to be totally honest with you. It's like you can feel good when you earn it type thing.
Yeah, but I think you also are good about realizing what's important to be good at and what you can let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is mostly luck, right? That's just my personality. That was how I was nurtured, right? I come from a Caribbean family, a very laissez-faire, do as you please. Like how we celebrate everything is by 200 family members packed in a basement on the south side, drinking and eating and dancing, and that's, to me, that's a regular get together.
Yeah.
A great time. So I never had a very like super structured churchy family or anything like that. You go, turn up, drink, go to church for like an hour and repeat. You know what I mean? Like that's I grew up very loose.
Yeah.
Very loose and very fun. So luck, mostly luck. My relaxed personality, man.
You said you're currently working on a book and you're kind of putting feelers out here and there on the gram.
Yeah.
Is there a deadline, timeline? You're just kind of laissez-faire with it?
It gets long. It gets harder. So the book is right now, I think. So I'll tell you how it started. I wanted to write a memoir, and in some ways, I'm still writing. I shouldn't say a memoir. I should say a manifesto. Basically, like if Ryan were a stance or a political party or a outlook of all these things I've talked about today, like all these things I've agreed that I identify with, what are all of those things? One time this is actually how Fortis started. I was going somewhere. I think I was flying to Las Vegas from Los Angeles, so a very short flight. And I was sitting next to this dude who's like an up and coming MMA fighter or UFC or something like that. And he was dumb as a fucking box of rocks, but good. That's what it takes to be an athlete sometimes. Just fucking be dumb and just do it, right? Just flow. And he kept saying, like, yeah, man, just... And we kept talking about sports and stuff. And he's like, some guys, like, they just don't have it. They don't got it. Right? They just don't have it. And this is, like, end of January. I'm flying to Vegas. Dead season. Right? This is me and this guy. He's like, they just don't got it. And he kept saying it, have it, got it. And I just started writing that day. And I was like, what is it? What is the it factor? What is it? And then I kept writing. What are the components of it? Sort of in, like, I don't know, like a logic, truth, axiom type way. Like, what makes up it? Because when we say it, you do something with your body. He's like, he's just got it, right? We can't say it orally, so we do something. We're like, he's got that, you know? Like you.
That's how limiting language can be sometimes.
And it's very limiting, right? And I think what I do better than anything, in at least for social media,
put it into words.
I take that feeling and I put it in the words, which is what my gods have done for me.
Okay.
My Nietzsche's, right?
Yeah.
My Malcolm X. Like, they take that feeling and put it in words, and to me, there's nothing better than that, right? And then for people to translate your words in other languages, it's nuts to me. That to me is the great feeling. I've always enjoyed that, whether it be orally or writing, but I've never, again, I never considered myself an entrepreneur. I just kind of started doing it. I never considered myself a bodybuilder. I was just filling a gap. That's what writing has become. So I came home and I made this like kind of binder. Like, my graphic designer helped me. I basically told her like the components of my life. So it's this binder I have, and it has, like, I call it the department folder. It's like, it's like accounting, finance, Fortis stuff, client stuff, personal life, and it's like literally I have a department for every piece of my life. And then I have a few sheets on there. One's like an open sheet where I can write openly on that topic, just get it out and figure out what I need to do. Then I have another problem solving sheet. It's like current tasks, future tasks, and then here's an important part. It's what needs to be done, where are you stuck, what help do you need, right? And whether this is personal, right? Whether it's like I'm trying to like sell a bike or something and I'm not doing it. So, I'll write out why you're not doing it. And I'll write myself through it, right? And so I've always been able to get that emotion out. So I was doing that, and then I got to a point where I have a content one on writing content. And then I was like, okay, I'd like to create I started on my phone. I was like, what are the things I like talking about? So I was like, all right, self-responsibility and all these topics. And I kept growing on the it thing. Like, what makes it? Turns out it's like hundreds of things. It's a lot. It's quite a lot. I didn't think it would have that much depth to it. And that day I went to Vegas. Like, it was my friend's birthday, and I just literally took out my phone and I just was like writing. And then like sometimes I'll just switch to doodling and stuff like that. And then I just wrote like this chevron and like FEQ, and I just drew out like the current.
I didn't notice that. Okay.
That's what the current Fortis EQ logo is, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, Fortis, like, so one, I got Fortis was basically like the name of a test product we had in De Novo.
Okay.
It's like you would have a product, and like before it got its name,
Sure.
you'd call it something, right? So there's one product called Fortis, and I loved it. I wanted it to be the main name, but it ended up being like, it was Utopia, I think, actually, or something like that, right? And I love that name so much. Fortis is just Latin for strength or strong, whatever. And so before that new De Novo product came out, when we changed the name, we were playing a lot of chess in De Novo, like just amongst each other. And chess was like, to me, a game of life. I don't know if you ever played chess. And it's just really, you can see who someone is through chess. It's like it's like a conversation without having a conversation. And I really liked it. And at the time we were playing a lot of chess, and my grandma passed. I've come from a Caribbean family where it's like, there's no, like you were telling me about your parents, like the way kind of like the relationship is and things like that. In the Caribbean world, dude, like, there's no fathers, the mothers are the fathers, and like there's no complaint. It's just the way it like, everyone's happy too, right? It's like, you might have someone who's like, you might have a cousin and their dad has never been part of the family, never got married, never anything, but 40 years later, this guy's still coming around. He's family, basically. Like, that's how Caribbeans roll.
Cool.
And so, like, I've always felt, I guess, that kind of way, like, kind of how I feel towards, like, family and people. I've always sort of applied that to, that's the way I want to say it, kind of like what I do in the, I guess, in the flow of, I want to say creativity, but that's the word I'm gonna have to go with. So anyways, I don't want to get off topic. Getting back to kind of like this content thing, I wanted to make a content folder, which had all the topics of it, right, stemming from this and everything. And so, like, I feel like I was thinking, like, all right, well, like, what am I doing? What am I doing with this content? And basically, Fortis represented what I feel was like the queen piece of like the chessboard, right? So like I got a tattoo right here. It's like a queen piece, because the queen piece is like the most, and it says Fortis on the bottom. It's the most like the feminine, versatile,
okay.
And it's at that feminine power, right? It's like it can move as it wants, but you don't move it. It's not premature, you know. It's like it's reserved, like, and I loved it. And so I kind of felt like if there's anything that describes the approach to how an athlete should be in life, it should be that queen piece. Like, it's strong, but not brute. It moves diagonally, forward, backwards if it fucking wants. It does whatever it wants. It's powerful. It's revered. And I felt like that's how an athlete should be. So I started putting all these things between sort of like what I was learning from chess, the game, what I've learned from my gods, my masters, I call them. And then this conversation with this random dude, and I started just writing everything that I've thought about in my life, and putting it into categories. And I wanted it to just basically be in a way to organize content. And I kept writing it, and the more I kept writing it, the more I was like, I should just put this out. I should put out everything. I want to put out every thought I've ever had. And so right now what I'm doing is data collection. I'm going through all my old posts and every philosophy I've ever said, every writing I've ever written. I'm basically saying, like, okay, this post was from something, 2014 something. This fits the category of commitment. This fits so I'm just piecing together all these things that make up it factor for an athlete, that like mindset, I guess you can call it. And I'm putting them all together. And I want to write, my goal was to write something like a sort of a meat and potatoes book.
Yeah, you mentioned like Ryan Holiday. Mark Manson.
Yeah, I really like that idea, but I'm just writing, man, and I'm not even, and it's so I want to, my goal with this is, again, like I was saying earlier, I don't have a number, that I don't have a date or timeline when I want it to come out. I don't have a goal with publishing. I don't have a financial goal with it. I don't need the money, you know.
It's liberating.
Dude, I want to be able to put this out and say, this is my life's work of thought, especially through my language of barbell. And I want to put it out, and I want to feel like that feeling, like I can die. I'm good. Like
Bobby Hundreds.
Who's that?
Familiar? So he's in Cali. He's built a streetwear empire called The Hundreds, and these days, like,
I've heard of the brand.
Yeah. So he wrote a book. He just finished, I don't know if he finished it, but he was on a book tour. And then he has a pod. So the book is called This Is Not a T-Shirt, and the book goes into, just like this episode, goes into so much more than streetwear. It's his memoir, essentially. And I see a lot of connections between you two, and like you said earlier, it's just choose your vessel, and you'll communicate. And there's so many common threads even between. I've only done like 30 guests. Like I've been noticing so many.
It's all the same. It's all the same through a different medium, right? And so, like, when I see, you know, like, it's Bobby Hundreds, right? Is his name? Mm-hmm. When I hear about stuff like that, I'm inspired beyond belief, because I see a person who has walked in my shoes, but is probably, you know, maybe 4,000 days ahead of me in that path of getting that out and like, you know, and so it's like I'm on the same path, but I'm just a bit behind. So it's like when I stumble upon all these random paths that I have in career and things in life, I try to attach myself to people who have done good work, whether I can meet them or not, and just
Mind jam.
What do you say?
Mind jam.
Lock, man.
Yeah.
Lock,
Yeah.
right? So I don't really, this conversation, after having this conversation with you, I probably won't have a conversation in depth like this with anybody for another 2 months, 3 months, because I feel like people talk too much. And that's one thing I learned from California, is that when I was in LA, people fucking talk so fucking much, dude, right? Like, you don't know the difference because, one, you've done your work here in an environment of Midwestern hard work, wake up, do the thing, work late. Like, there's a culture ingrained in Chicago and the Midwest of getting it done.
Work, yeah.
And then also, too, just having, Asian parents like that. You work, you this, like, so you don't know laziness. You know procrastination, but you don't know what it means to be lazy. You think you know sometimes. Go to LA, man. You know that I've never seen laziness like the people in LA. Dude, like, you go to these places, you go to dinners, dude, and people just talk. They do so much talking, and it's just overwhelming.
How do you live? Isn't it like expensive to live there? Like,
That's what I'm trying to figure out. That's what I've been trying to figure out, dude. Like, I'm not, and seriously, like you meet these the area I lived in Redondo Beach. Just like, for example, right? Like, the house that I was in, 3-bedroom, maybe 1,600 square feet condo, $1 million.
Jeez.
$1 million, man. Right? And this isn't like the heart of downtown. This is just a beach.
Yeah.
It's like 2 streets away from the coast. So I would meet these surfers, and I'd be like, how are you pulling this?
What the fuck are you guys doing?
So basically, and what I've learned about people in California is that a lot of people they have foregone Southern California. They have foregone everything in terms of financial stability to live that California lifestyle. And I admire it because it's like, I would meet these kids who, like, the whole shit, dude. Like, they literally skateboard to get the places. They wear their Vans, they're smoking, like, and I'm like, you're about that life, and you're about it to the end. Like, respect,
Good for you.
right? So every now and then they surf, they skate, and then they go, work an odd plumber job here and there, and they're really living this liberal life out. It's amazing.
And that's what Gary's all about. It's just like finding your self-awareness, like,
it's amazing.
It's
amazing, but it's a lot of talk out there, a lot of talk.
Okay.
And that's why sometimes you hear celebrities who say, like, yeah, I had to get out of LA. Like, that happened to me. I felt like I got to a point where, like, the social circle that I did create, a lot of my favorite people, like influencers like Meg Squats and stuff like that, I really like, because she's from Ohio, right? So everyone I liked in California was from Midwest, right? Like, they worked hard and did, and like, so it got to a point where I was like, man, I either need to go back home or New York or something like that. So yeah, I just feel like my stance on work is, like, again, work isn't something for me about, like, it is about the money, but it isn't about the money or popularity or clout. Like, because I'm from here, the work is my drug. I almost feel like a foreman. Like, how good is my carpentry, right? That's how I feel about my work. It's like my drug to give me my good feeling for the day, to give me my day satisfaction, is in good work. It's not about money or anything. It's just I'm addicted to working, to doing good work, to doing a good, like, I want you to leave and be like, this is one of the best fucking podcasts I ever did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm addicted to just good work.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel good. So that's what I want with the book. I want to just make it good for me. And sometimes the danger in that is that you can be, like, for instance, someone popular in history like that, Leonardo da Vinci. Like, when I was in Florence, Italy, I went to his museum, more or less, right? That's where, like, that was like the epicenter with, like, the Medici family, who basically, like, started medicine, like, it's insane.
Yeah. When you
culture.
turn the corner to see David,
yeah,
I'm like, whoa,
it's an insane place, right? And so, like, I saw all those natural things he did, and then you would see some of his work and writing and stuff like that, and he basically like the Da Vinci Code, he was so, like, on another level. He would write things in a shorthand. Like we all have shorthand and stuff that we do. His was so in depth that like people still can't figure it out. Literally, they're talking about this Da Vinci Code. Like his shorthand was so, he was so to his own genius, and his work was so good that almost nobody got it. Right? It was like Vincent van Gogh in his time. His work was so good that he died poor, like Mozart and things like that, right? Like sometimes your work can be so good to yourself that no one fucks with it. So I think that's where I'm at right now with this book. It's like,
You know who I think? I'm sorry, Frank Yang.
dude,
Fuck.
I don't think people appreciate what he did with that medium.
Holy shit.
I don't think people appreciate what he did with that medium of YouTube, dude.
That 360 camera is a game changer for him. Oh my god.
Dude, he was just like Frank Yang. I don't know if you're a fan of like Tim and Eric, the comedians.
Yo, we're going to the show.
You're going?
I bought tickets for my buddy's birthday.
I'll be
I got
there,
the tickets on my table.
dude. So I'm going to the. I mean, attendance is mandatory. You know what I mean? You gotta go. So like, my girlfriend hates it, right? She's so, like I said, practical. She's like, this is not funny.
Right,
like,
right.
I like that I can go, like something like Tim and Eric. I like that their work is so good that like, I can feel uncomfortable, not sure if I'm supposed to be laughing or like. I like that challenge in what they're putting out. Like I like their challenge in that work. Like you go see someone much simpler, like a regular stand-up comedian, you almost like programmed to win the laugh.
Like you know when. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Which is a good.
It was good.
escape.
Ellie one was good. It's all good. you
Nothing
know?
wrong. Nothing wrong.
Joe
with
Rogan, yeah.
It. Right. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think sometimes you can be so Da Vinci, so Van Gogh in your work that you get that catharsis that this is good, but no one gets it.
Dave Chappelle is a good balance.
And my goal in my work is to,
Question what you should laugh at.
dude, it's deeper than just reps and sets to me. Just like it's deeper than just laughs and like, how can I put my philosophy and covered in applesauce of jokes,
Yeah.
or weights or whatever you do,
Yeah.
right? Take your thing and cover it in entertainment, right? And if you look at, I forgot his name, Zig Ziglar, right? He was like the first Gary Vee.
So yeah,
He's old school.
Okay.
He's old. He was like the first. He was like the first Tony
Marketing.
Robbins, the first
Okay.
Gary Vee, like market, like the whole deal. He was like
Yeah.
one of the first of those, one of our greats,
Sure.
right? How to do this thing. And one thing he always would say, he was like, and he was an old school Southern guy. He had charisma. He was funny. He was smart, and like he knew how to mix a punchline. And this is like old shit. You know what I mean? Like he knew how to capture an audience. Like it can't be all serious. Like Jordan Peterson, for instance. As much as I like Jordan Peterson, he's so damn serious.
He's
like
on, yeah.
he's like just like fucking laser vision serious. And it's like he would capture, he doesn't have to, he would capture a much larger audience if he made people laugh a little bit, if he made people feel positive energy a little bit, right? Like that's what I think good work is. It's that how do you take Nietzsche and put it in like a Christmas box,
Yeah.
right? Just not a fucking old dusty book of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, fucking that thick.
Right,
but like,
right.
how do we remix this thing? You know what I mean? Like, how do you take?
But then you go back to, I'm sure Jordan Peterson's impressing himself. You know,
He's
like
impressing himself.
exactly.
And so I think that,
right?
and so I think that's also an important thing for people to realize in what you're doing with your work. Do you want to make markets happy, or do you want to be a purist, right? So I forget the name of the guy, but anyways, he was a mathematician, in some country. I should have my facts straight, but anyways, something or something like that. I forgot it. I got his name. But anyways, he was one of these old math dudes. He used to go to the beach, right? They didn't have paper, and he would write math problems in the sand, right? And this was a long time ago. This dude was such a purist in his work that there was basically a warning from the Roman soldiers wherever he lived that was like, hey, we're on lockdown. Nobody go outside today. If you go outside, we're going to kill you. This dude was such a purist that he still went to the beach and did his math, and the Roman soldiers like, what the fuck are you doing here? And he didn't even have the social skills to communicate, like, I'm a great mathematician, like, and they killed him right there, right? So I forget his name. It's like, it's got a PL something in it.
Placencia?
No,
No?
dude, I know, I'm fucking up. But
It's all
anyways,
good, it's all good.
But anyways, you can search it and you can hear the story, and it's a heartbreaking story. It's that this dude was such a mathematician purist that he was such a purist that he didn't pay attention to the basic social rules of life, so you don't get killed, right? And I feel like that's a decision that a lot of people who want to be influencers or put their stuff out there have to do. It's like, when you talk about what's your niche, I think it starts with how pure do you want the work to be. So for me, when I write personally, it's like fucking only you and nerds and dweebs want to read my initial writing. But when I put it out to the public, I got to put some applesauce on it because I want to make money. I want it to be digested. I don't want it to be Da Vinci shorthand. Like, I actually want, I put a little beat on it and I rap to it. Or I could do some deep Shakespeare shit, right? Or you can rap it a little bit. Like, you pick how pure you want it to be. So I don't want to be such a generalist where I'm like, what's up, guys? Today we're right. I don't want to do that, but I also don't want to be on some hear ye type force
Right,
score
preachy,
shit.
you know,
Right, I don't
yeah,
want to do
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, good work is sliding down that spectrum of purist and hitting general, so that defines your niche, right? Like, how highbrow do you want to be? How dumb do you want to be? I go through some periods where it's like I literally don't want to use a word with 3 syllables in it. Right?
Yeah.
I just want to give it as straight and as raw as I can. Then I go through some periods where it's like, I just want to see, like, how beautiful can I make the sound, right? Those are some of the least popular things I do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I think that's
Ryan, your shirt's still on. No, I'm just
that's another thing I forget. That's another thing I forget, dude. I'm not joking. Like, there's seriously, like, sometimes I'll have pictures. I'm like, what do I post? What that? Like, because I know what I want to post, but I don't know the picture. And my girlfriend would be like, post that one. I'm like, that's what? She's like, no. She's like, trust me, I'm a girl. Post that one. And dude, sure enough, it'll work. Like, dude, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
That sometimes, like, I can just literally take my shirt off. Here's the applesauce. Chew this, and as you're chewing 2 lines in,
Please read.
you realize
Continue
there's a blue pill in there. You know what I mean?
Now swallow.
Exactly. And that's how I've baited and switched people for years. And it's one thing that I thoroughly enjoy doing because I feel so pro towards my masters, towards my God. Like, I'm like, you need to go read this Thoreau, man. Like,
Yeah.
you need to go read this purely from the source. But people aren't, right? And that's why we have these mediums like preachers to preach the word every Sunday, or like we need these translators in society, educators more or less, right? Like, you've read the books, the
Right.
purity. Like, how do we get it with some applesauce in it? So I think where I'm at least in terms of social media, is I want to stay pure enough so that there's a special club of people who are into it.
Right.
But I don't want to get so big to the point.
Respect and credibility.
Yeah, dude, like a lot of my friends who are, they're at that weird point, and I say weird point of like, I think that 250 to like 400,000 followers is a very odd point, because it's like you're leaving general.
Yeah.
Right? That's when, and like my friends who are in that, I think personally, they struggle more than anybody I know on social media, right? Because it's like
there's pressure now.
There's a bunch of people who have been with me for years, but there's also a bunch of people that I don't know, and so it's like, who do I keep growing, hit that million, and just go general, go do some fucking K-pop songs, right? Or do I keep doing what got me here, right? It's a weird dichotomy, I think, in the growth of it, because in the beginning, man, that super loyal beginning followers, that initial core, man, they mean the world to you. And I think for me, I've been lucky enough where it's like I've had an insane amount of retention in my following. Like, I don't have the biggest following, but I really think I have one of the most powerful followings. Like, it's nuts.
1,000 true fans,
dude. It's nuts. It's like, and it's nuts how true of fans of me they are, which I think is which is crazier. But man, a lot of luck, a lot of time, and I think to start seeing social media as just relationships is really the best way to do it. No matter how big you get. No matter how big it is. Yeah. So if your goal is 1 million, be prepared to know no one in some ways, you know? Like, it must, to me, like, I'm a huge Beatles fan. I always think about, like, Paul McCartney. Like, you write these songs and everyone of every language knows it. And, like, you never really meet a true fan. Or even if you do meet one, you can't believe it. Like, so, for instance, every gym I go to, for the most part, someone will know me. One person, two people. Every gym I've ever worked out at, like, consistently. They'll be like, hey, are you, right? And that's like, if that one or two people come up to me, I believe you. You actually know me. But when you get to this weird point of, like, Ogus, right? Like, I say Ogus because I'm a friend of Ogus. People are like, oh, Matt. And it's like, do you believe that love? Or is he, or you say? Ogus is weird. Ogus is a weird dude. Because when you get to know him, he's very reserved, very quiet. Like his YouTube personality versus his, it's not even different.
He didn't. His last video was like, there's no words. It was just a reintroduction to Ogus.
Dude, good. Matt off camera to me is one of the best humans I've met in the fitness industry.
Awesome.
Right? But I think he got into that trap of high energy, high entertainment. You got to sell yourself out a little bit. You got to take off your shirt in every video. Like when you get into that trap, you're kind of stuck into it. And I think obviously having a kid and getting a stable family life, and that was always one of the more interesting things about him. I remember like even like some of the first conversations we had, like he always wanted a family.
Good for him.
Like we were like 23 or something.
Yeah, wow.
It was nuts, right? Yeah. Right. So it's like, and like the first time I met him, he had his phone background was me.
What the fuck?
It was crazy. It was crazy. I didn't think, but he wasn't that big or anything at the time.
No,
he was just like, yeah, dude.
He's been slowing down. He's been more thoughtful about the posts. Like, and Lovato always keeps it like super sarcastic and real.
Lovato is.
It's so cool. Just like it was Scott Herman, then it was Rob Riches, and then it was Matt Ogus, Chris Lovato, LOA, and then Jim Shark.
I worked with Rob when I was in LA a bit, actually.
Yeah. I saw a video.
Yeah, dude, he's like
he's been trying to redo. He's always reinventing himself
consistently.
Yeah, he
was one of the first people, and when I moved to LA that I met, that I connected with. I saw him in the gym. We went to the same gym. I had no idea who he was.
Oh.
And then I saw him just like tagged on Instagram, and I was like, Rob Riches. I was like, all right, I'll introduce myself. I was like, hey, are you Rob Riches? And then like, it instantly went to the position of like, yes, I'm Rob, and it was like me as a fan, and I was like, oh, shit, I should have introduced myself a little differently. But it's all good. It's all good. Take the like he was like he almost like stood like. Yes, it's me. Now shower me with adoration. Oh, okay. That celebrity thing. Okay. Nothing against him, but that's what an asymmetrical relationship is, right?
Now, on the flip side, it was probably cool. I know I heard in the last episode with Austin, you were taken aback when Guzman introduced himself.
That was nuts.
That was cool, right?
That was nuts.
When it's flipped. And then to even go meta, when you reached out to me. When you're like, hey, when are you going to invite me on the podcast? I was like, bro, what the fuck?
It's crazy,
you just invited yourself.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yes. It's humbling.
It is.
To hear from people you thought you would never hear from. It's cool.
Absolutely. Dude, it was insane. Like, when Guzman said that to me, it was like... Because I'll be honest. I was actually at... This is probably 3 years ago. I was at Augus's house. I was staying with him. I just did Half Dome.
Oh, nice.
Right? And so I went and I stayed with Matt for like 4 or 5 days or something like that. And dude, he was like in this weird space with YouTube and stuff, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And I was in De Novo. I was busy. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what's going on? I'm like, who's like the guy right now? He's like, shit. He was like, probably it's going to be like this kid, Christian Guzman. He's real good. And that was the first time I heard his name.
Okay.
But I never watched his stuff. And at the same time I was staying there, Abdullah Zane, I don't know if you're familiar with Abdullah. He's that Australian kid who comes and visits sometimes.
Yeah.
He's always like talking about sick cunt, bro. Like, he's just a funny dude. He made this diss video on Christian Guzman. Okay. Like, he went in Augus's garage and did it.
Okay.
And so I wasn't invested in that world, but I just kept hearing this name.
Okay.
Guzman and this and it. I don't know, right? So basically, fast forward time to never knowing much about the dude. My friend Jorge, Fitness IQ,
Mm-hmm.
Jorge kind of starts going on his path, and he gets into that super popular influencer path. Like, I remember I was with him in Orlando. It was like a year and a half, like 2 years ago. We were in the hotel at Raw Nationals, and he was like staying with me. And then he was like just talking. He was like, "Hey man, like they're offering me like he gets like I get like cool influencer stuff. He gets insane influencer stuff.
Okay.
So like he he gets like he goes on like free cruises. He went to like he goes on like it's big
No
time
shit.
shit. So it's like he's like, hey man, like they gave me they offered me to go to Israel for a week. He's like, what do you think about it? And I was like, do you understand what's going on with Israel right now and the whole border thing and land thing and like and Zionists? And he's like, no. I explained to him Palestine and Israel. He had no idea.
Oh wow.
I explained this to him for like 40 minutes. He was mind blown. I was like, you want to know the kicker? You look like a Palestinian.
Oh, snap. right.
Right. And so basically the Israeli government is funding companies to bring in influencers and see the country and put out a positive image of it. So he did it, and then he got like huge backlash from obviously Palestinians and people who were pro-Palestine, and so like he got into the whole thing, right? And so it's like it's crazy to see governments in some way utilizing my friends for their agenda. Like as far as like my personal opinion with like the Palestine Israel thing, it is. I look at that and I'm like, I dare not speak on the original beef. Like that is the that was like upon the Homo sapien leaving Africa, that was like the first beef, right? That area,
Wow,
area was. It's like, dude, that area is just a hotbed of just beef in arguments.
My buddy he went on Birthright, and he actually had the balls to question the propaganda he was hearing from Israel. Yeah.
That's nuts, dude. But you know what? I say this. I look at a lot of things that have happened historically. I look at Israel. I look at the United States of America. I look at what Hitler tried to do in World War II. I look at Russia, like, and it's like, you know, I live in a country that benefited off of a lot of what's going on there, and the only reason we don't talk about it is because in the United States, they won completely. You know, like we go on and on and on about Hitler killing 3 million Jews, and it was a terrible thing. It was so terrible to methodically kill that many people. But man, we also wiped out 20 million Native Americans pretty clean. You know what I mean? So it's like, as an American, I tread lightly with trying to judge anybody else just because I hate to even say this term, like, did what we did to the end, right? I didn't live through the progress of basically the genocide of an entire race of people, right? I didn't live through that. So I can't speak on it because I'm an American and I benefit living in literally Indian native land, right? So I really hope that they can figure out that issue best they can. And that's the thing. Who you for, who you against, right? It's really two people that have a age-old beef, age-old history, and you know, you hope that.
And those are that's what we hear, you know. Like there's this really cool kid, his name's Nas. He makes daily vlogs and whatnot.
That dude's fucking
dude, and he
nuts.
He gives out free Airbnbs, and he has one in Israel, one in Palestine, and they're free. And he's bringing the world together, you know. It's just nuts. Yeah. So I'm sure there's more of those people that see through the differences, past the differences, and acknowledge that. Right. But still, it's you can still be kind to each other. It's okay.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely, man. But I think it's hard when you're, like you said, like we were talking about with universal basic income. When you're poor, it's hard to give a fuck about anything, right? When you're struggling, it's hard to give a fuck about anything. And if you look at really most places around the world, outside of the Western world, life isn't about striving or self-actualization. It's just about survival, right? And when you're in a survival mode, you don't care about veganism or global warming or you just care about surviving. And then the behaviors you exhibit when you feel someone threatening your Gaza Strip, I mean, you might go a little fucking I'm capable of doing it. You're capable of doing it, right? Like, and that's the thing about humans that I find so interesting is that we are all capable of anything. Like, within the right context. Tonight, you could murder somebody, right? Actually, you could murder me tonight if the right events happened.
Sure.
Right. What those things would be to unlock it, I don't know. It would have to be pretty extreme. But you are more than capable of being a murderer. I am too, right? And so that's the thing. It's like when I use the word luck, I've never been put in a situation that has pushed me and gave me enough resistance that I've had to push back and be a worse version of myself, right? I've never had to see what I'm capable of in terms of a demon, right? I've been upset, I've been angered, I've been hurt, but I've never been put in a position where I've been so hurt that I've said, I'm going to shoot everybody in this fucking school, which is another thing because like not in America. Like if you that's a sensitive topic, but like, God, that hurts my feelings more than anything. These school shootings, man, it just hurts because it just therapy exists. You know, like therapy exists, dude. Like in Sudan, right? There are children who go to school and saw their mothers get raped by 30 soldiers in a row. Like, and they live with that. There are terrible things that happen in this world. You got bullied, man. Like, it's bad. I get it. I get relative deprivation is a thing. You're the worst treated in this group, in your in-group. But, yeah, dude, this place, this America, I think just the freedom of this place also will exhibit the full spectrum of who we are as humans. And I think what we're seeing now in the world is what happens when you hit go on a capitalist system and let it fucking run for a few hundred years. Like, it's an interesting place, but you know, I hope good will prevail, as it historically has done in the United States. To be honest, bad has never really won, right?
Yeah. Well, at the same time, all you can do is worry about yourself. You know? And
Ayn
just
Rand.
do good work. Yeah.
Ayn Rand.
No.
And if you worry about yourself, the whole will be good.
That's interesting.
Yep.
We're coming up on 3 hours, bro.
It's good. It's a good podcast. I think it might be the longest one I've ever done. No, when we had a de novo podcast, I think I did one a little longer than this back when we had podcasts. Yeah.
What's cool is I try to chop these up into like Instagram bits.
Yeah.
You know, and there's just that's tedious. But
That's got to be a tough part.
but going to remind myself it's not about the quantity but the quality. And
So if I were you, and this is literally like what I defined. For example, I've been talking about good work. I would literally keep a timer, right? And I would, when I heard something I liked, I would like write that time down.
so I wrestle with that about having a notepad out and
Do
things
it,
like
man.
that.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Because now it's hard
Because
to
now
be
I
like,
have to rewatch.
now you gotta rewatch.
Yeah.
Make that efficient, man. You could easily be like, all right, here are the time markers that I really like, right?
Yeah.
And then in time, right, you get, what's that dude who does Joe Rogan's podcast with him, Little Joey or something like that? I forget his name. He's
Joey Diaz?
No. That's the guy who does it. He's like the assistant in the room with Joe Rogan all the time.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
meme-ified already.
Yeah,
Oh, fuck.
I forget his name.
Pull it up,
Jamie, Lil Jamie, Young Jamie, Young Jamie, Young
pull it
Jamie,
up.
right? So it's like, in time, right? Episode 150, you could simply have someone who chops it up. Here's the Dropbox file. Here is something, and some fucking kid at fucking Loyola Arts program would do that for $50 a chop, you know, in time. So I'm saying,
Right,
like, so for me, that's what good work is, and that's how it grows.
Just realizing what your value is. I get it.
Right?
I get
You're good at having these conversations, and in the beginning, you have to grind and
Right,
do those things
right.
yourself. But I think my thing in good work is like, how do I make a good system a better system, and
Yeah.
how do I keep improving it? And that to me is like, I'm made for a corporation, basically. Like, that's what makes
Your
me
own
happy.
corporation.
I-
Your own. You know.
I am a corporation, right? Efficiency and improvement.
The one last thing is, it is so good to have something to call your own, and no one is calling the shots above you.
No one can fuck with my podcast. No one can tell me what questions to ask, where the conversation goes.
I agree with that, but I also disagree with that. And I think there's a big myth to being your own boss. And the myth to being your own boss is that you don't have a boss. In fact, you now have the worst boss you've ever had in your life, yourself. There is no worse boss than being your own worst boss. You say things and you treat yourself much worse than any real boss in real life would treat you, right? So I think the navigating of starting the journey of being your own boss should not be defined with no one tells me what to do, I'm free to do whatever I want. You really have to learn who you are and learn, to be honest, the tyrant you are. Everyone's got a little bit of dictator in them towards themselves, right? You're nasty with yourself. Like you wake up, like sometimes you'll wake up, middle of the night to pee, and you're like, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. What? Imagine if you woke up in the middle of the night to pee and a boss calls you like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. That's you.
Okay.
That you're nuts. Are you crazy? Right? So it's like I struggled with being my own boss, being too hard on myself. I still do, to be totally honest with you, right? But the fact that I have a fucking slave driver in my head, that's why I'm successful, because I'm the best boss that I've ever had. Every boss I've ever had is too slack. They're not hard enough on me. And so I think that's another myth, man, saying no one's in control. Yeah, no external person's in control.
Right.
You got a fucking maniac in your head.
Yeah, good point. Where can people find you? Where can people? I mean, I'm excited to line up for your book when it comes out. But
so yeah, I want to.
And thanks for not making it an ebook.
I've read so many books. I want a book.
Yeah.
I want a book. So obviously,
make it an audiobook.
That's.
You have the voice for that. I'm just saying.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think my expressions are good. I don't know if my voice is an audiobook voice, but I don't want somebody else reading it because I know they'll get my inflections wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They won't say it how I want to say it.
Mm-hmm. Not every author can voice their own book, though.
I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say I get annoyed at some, I feel like some people who don't want to do their own audiobook. They just think if you hire like some British dude from West London, that'll do the trick. You know what I mean?
No.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of like they think some British.
I think Tim Ferriss did a pretty good job hiring a specific guy for the Tao Seneca.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree. But yeah, so all my tags, YouTube, if you want content like this, is the Natty Pro.
1E. I remember when there's an episode where you're like, not the Natty Pro.
The
Natty Pro.
The Natty Pro. Did I say on that episode where I got that name from, the Natty Pro?
Yeah, you were in class. You were just plugging it in, and
I got it.
Yeah, you're
so
like,
it was
I
arrogant.
am the.
It was the most arrogant thing I've ever done. Like I see it all the time, and I'm like, I should fucking change this.
Maybe it
because
needs some accountability.
You know what it is? Like I put that on, and then I mean I know like the legends like Doug Miller, Philip Ricardo, like the great natural bodybuilders. I personally know them, and they follow me, and I'm like, they know this is not true. Like they're
who is this kid,
right? Like, and so, but I did it. And so I always to me, it was always a combination of like, I wanted to be the best bodybuilder at one point in my life. So it was like, I'm the Natty Pro, like fucking, I'm claiming it. But, there's a Bob Marley album called, Natty Dread. Natty is like natty, nappy hair, naughty hair, dreadlocks. And it's just kind of like a Caribbean culture shout out at the same time too. So it's like a double entendre. It's like one of my favorite Bob Marley albums. Plus, kind of work with natural bodybuilding, so the Natty Pro.
Yeah.
So the Natty Pro, that's everything. It would be crazy if I stopped competing pro bodybuilding and started in steroids, right? And still have that. That'd be nuts. My website is fortiseq.com. You can contact me through there. That's fortiseq.com. I don't have a ton to offer outside of my content for Fortis right now. But I think going there, it will still give you some direction more or less to really other main sources of media. Like if you're one of the few people who don't just check YouTube or Instagram first, some people don't, which is crazy to me. My website will kind of help direct you toward that direction. So in time, I will make some changes to the site, just putting up some light stuff, apparel, and obviously when my book gets going, I'll have some updates and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully my goal with this book is to get it up and get it out as soon as I can to everybody. If anybody knows anything about books and likes how I talk, I guess holler at me. I'm a hard worker. I need some help navigating that space. But for now, I'm just focusing
Like a publisher.
I don't know. I don't even
or
know.
someone to help you.
But that's also the thing, right? Like
Structure.
I think for me, my initial reaction with everything is always, how can I do this myself, and how wrong is everybody, right? So it's like, what is a publisher, and how much money does it really cost to publish a book, right? So it's like, if it's something like $30,000, can I front that myself? Do I need to split that money with somebody? Like, can I take that risk? I don't know. I don't know, right? I don't know anything. So I think for me, I'm all about information. The more information I get, the more I am emboldened to either sign my name away or do it with someone else. And my whole thing is trying to be like, how can I efficiently put this out with the help of people and make someone else's time with my worthwhile, right? Like, I know that a lot of influencers have followings and they come out with a book, but their following is like inflated, but their following is not coming to them to learn, and they just put out a book, a book or something like that, and so the book flops.
It's not congruent.
Not congruent. That'd be the word. Yeah. So yeah, I'm in a weird spot, man. So now, I'm just writing, putting out some content. The book will be an organized version of that hopefully reads well, and hopefully sounds well if I get to do it in audio within the same year of it at least. So
At the same time, you mentioned, because I'm currently reading the War of Art. So any of his books,
Stephen Pressfield.
like, you pick up, read a little bit, and then go out and use it, kind of thing.
Go out and use it too. And so I think, to me, that is what I call a that's what I call a philosophy book.
Okay.
Right? Whether it be Jesus, and you read and you have to read the book, but you get like 5 lines in, and you just put it down. Like, I'm gonna live this. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, if you hear Lao Tzu's words and you're like, I want to go do it. I want to live it. So that's what I hope for with my book. I mean, it's, you should be able to sit and read through it entirely. But just like the ones that came before me, my goal is to get a cathartic release of everything I know, everything that has helped me through my language of barbell. And really, it's a scary thing because I want to release everything, right? And it will more or less leave me with no new tricks, and it'll force me to go learn some new tricks. If I give everything up in this book and publish it, I'm kind of empty after that.
Yeah.
And it's a scary
thing. To do something new.
It's
you posted it on your story today.
What did I say?
Some story of another story. Your stories of another story. It's like you can't get to where you're going with what you did
Rochelle.
to get to. Yeah.
Yeah, that was that was from Rochelle. That was one of my. I worked with her for a while, and she's a fantastic figure competitor. And yeah, dude, she was jacked. She's jacked, but she had to try some new things and do some new things, and she adjusted well for her age and everything. I mean, she's not old; she's like our age, but you think you know everything by the time you're 29, 30, So shout out to her, man. Yeah, I forgot I said that, but so that's my idea: collect everything that I've said and put it together. So
I dig it.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, man. This is inspiring.
It's midnight.
I'm inspired. Fuck. Okay, cool.
Nuts.
I'm inspired. I'm ready to continue doing better work, be more thoughtful in my daily life.
That's good. I think I'm
re-inspired to continue into what I'm doing and to go, I guess, dig deeper into it.
To believe in the work, right?
Yeah.
Because I think people are good, opinions are good, numbers are good, but I think ultimately it's empty if you chase that, right? You become this corporate shell of a machine. Mm-hmm. So I think what the corporate machine with numbers and popularity, I think that helps give you some objective measurement to it. But I think the thing that's more important is like this house, this shell you live in. How do you fill that with good vibes? And for me, some people it's surfing, vacation. Yeah. For me, it's good work. So if you're like us who likes this hustle grind, think about your career culture. the work is the only thing that'll make you get that high, get that feeling. It's the best.
I'll leave it at this, but like maintaining a personal life, like a relationship, kudos to that. Unless your significant other is just as motivated and as much of a hustler as you are. That's where it matters. That's where you guys mesh well.
That's where I've gotten very lucky.
It's easy to, you have to make sacrifices, you know, like, oh, I can't spend as much time with you because I want to do good work.
And I think, I'm sorry, I know you want to leave off there,
No,
but
it's okay.
but I think also you need to be relentless in who you are. If who you are does not care, go forth on that path. It's that book, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. I've spent my entire life being relentlessly me, and I've attracted like attract likes, right? I'm not waiting around. When I was in college, I never went to networking events or tried to connect. I never did that. I see what I like. I say I like it. I do what I like, and people who fuck with me fuck with it. And over the years, just doing that, you will have accumulated some amazing, and people will be on board with your program. So it's not about dominating or being a boss or anything, but it's really establishing what you are and who you are. And if you have to give yourself up for, you know, a girlfriend or boyfriend or friends, like, I'm sure you have some healthy parts of your relationship, but why on earth, if you claim you're of this culture, would you give yourself up?
Yeah.
You are who you are, and you're gonna either grow to have a ton of resentment in the future, or you just fucking do it now. And people need to learn to live with who you are. They'll love you and forgive you if they're really riding with you. So
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on, bro.
midnight.
Seriously, appreciate
Nuts.
it. Welcome home.
Thanks, my guy.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay curious. Habla aloha. I'll catch you in the next episode.